We know that the Russians, very likely the Chinese, and other powers already have smuggled in nuclear devices into the United States. The weapon is probably already here. Their target priorities are a lot different now. They want to instill fear. They want to instill compliance. What you and I are getting as civilians, it's not the real story. There's been 2,221 nuclear devices detonated on the face of this planet. One nuke going off is not going to be the end of the world. The top people know it's survivable. Science and the math is absolutely clear. If you're going to want to survive what's coming up, you're going to have the desire to live, to protect your family. Well, why should I? There's no hope. Why should I prepare? I can't survive. I can't do this. Fear and the inaction that comes from it is the worst cancer you can give anyone.
World War III is already happening.
This is a house of cards, and it is in the process of collapsing right now.
You're going to see an economic crash, the likes of which we've never seen.
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today on the channel, it's an honor again to have Stephen Harris, who's the adjunct author of the Nuclear War Survival Skills book, widely regarded as the quintessential nuclear preparedness guide. He serves as a consultant to numerous corporations in the U.S. military, the Department of Defense, among others. He's also a dedicated science educator, recently contributed to an article for the Daily Mail, and is also the CEO of Knowledge Publications, a company focused on advancing hydrogen, biomass, and solar energy systems. Now, as you are the adjunct author of this book, what are your thoughts on potential nuclear scenarios? Like, realistically speaking, there's a lot of doomerism around, once they fire one nuke, it's going to be the end of the world, and you might not even prepare for it. What do you say to people of that mindset, and what are some scenarios you think that could potentially unfold?
Well, one, it's not 1984 anymore. We're not dealing with 20,000 weapons on each side and mutually assured destruction with the Soviet Union and the missiles flying over the North Pole. It's not that anymore. Get that out of your head. Their main goal is to have you acquiesce into whatever their interests are, not to flatten your cities. Not saying they might, not flatten one of your cities, as a show of, we're serious. The bear does bite, but all-out nuclear war? No. One nuke. There's been 2,221 nuclear devices detonated on the surface, below the ground, and in space on the face of this planet since it came about, and the first one was done in 1945. 2,221, plus or minus a few. We're still here. So one nuke going off is not going to be the end of the world. And so the first thing is to say, it's not 1984. Stop fighting and thinking about the past conflict. You got to think about fifth generational warfare, informational warfare, psychological warfare. It's going to be used as a terror device. Is it going to be smaller than Hiroshima? Is it going to be bigger than Hiroshima? What type of a device it is? And now you asked me about Annie Jacobson, who wrote the book Nuclear War, which was the theoretical implementation. And you and I, we could come down and write 1,000 ideas for how it might start, and none of them will be correct. It'll be something else other than what we thought of. But the exercise, yes, is a good exercise to think about, but it's going to be probably a singular event or multiple events over in the European theater. They might just hit Berlin, and because Germany stopped supplying them with weapons, or it might be London, or it might be the North Sea as a demonstration where there is no one. It could be a variety of those situations. But as many other authors, actually, the idea of North Korea in Jacobson's book launching an intercontinental ballistic missile that's going to take 30 to 45 minutes to fly across the pole and in the Pacific and come and hit the United States is really pretty unrealistic, because you should go read her other book, Surprise, Kill, Vanish, and you'd understand that the intelligence apparatus of the major countries, first world countries, is too damn good. We're going to know they're getting ready. We're going to know they're preparing. And, we have ways of intercepting in space, over under the sea and many other places, a weapon taking that long to get here, and let alone interdicting it on the ground before it even launches. So it's not like they're just going to have one sitting there and like our Minuteman missiles and go, okay, launch, and blast door goes by and it goes up and it's on the way and we got nothing to do to shoot it down. So what's a much more likely scenario for the United States is what Tom Clancy put forth in many of his books, and is probably very, very true. Remember, I learned all this from Tom Clancy, is that the weapon is probably already here. We know that the Russians, very likely the Chinese and other powers, already have smuggled in nuclear devices into the United States. They aren't that big. If they smuggle in all the drugs and everything else they can smuggle in a nuclear device. Think of it about the size of you or me. They can smuggle that in. It doesn't give off a lot of radiation. It's very hard to detect, and it can be very stable for a long period of time. So is it possible that North Korea already has one here? Yeah, it's possible. And if they want to attack DC, they don't need to send an intercontinental ballistic missile all the way across the world over to us. All they got to do is drive a truck into downtown DC and clock it off. Or New York, or Atlanta, or Houston, or Los Angeles. I don't think Alberta is really on the target list.
Saskatchewan, actually, but hey.
Sorry, Saskatchewan. I didn't mean to insult you.
Same
Sorry,
thing.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, we're Alberta's little brother, or we actually we're the ones who populated most of the country, but everybody leaves here when they grow up and they realize that things called cars exist. So you said something.
Speaking of which, did we mention I am in my nuclear shelter? I am broadcasting to you from my fallout shelter. That's been in my house that I built in 1999. This is not a blast shelter. It's in the basement. Here's the concrete wall. There's the concrete wall. And there's 4 foot by 8 foot structure with all of my food and other supplies all the way around it, providing the radiological shielding along with the dirt and the concrete on each side, which is the thing that we have that as a basement. Whereas down south, they don't have basements. But wow. I am actually, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. I am in my shelter that's 26 years old.
And so, I mean, that's a testament to the fact that you can build a shelter within a basement, as we call them up here, if you have them. So you don't need to go to the extent of building a full-on bunker per se. I mean, that might benefit you in circumstances where you're closer to a potential blast zone, possibly.
Yeah, blast radius. But then again, the target map has already changed. And most people don't realize this, but you know what the target list was back in the 80s? The first targets.
The Minuteman missile silos, primarily.
The missile fields. Bases. And the next targets were?
Air bases.
The 5 mile long runways. And the third target?
Naval ports.
It's all the major road and rail intersections in the United States. The military kill chain is find, fix, finish. So they know where you are. They fix you. You can't move. They take out all your road junctions and everything else, which usually happen to be in and around major cities. And so thus the city gets flattened, right? But if it's like, if you want to attack like a refinery, one of the big ones down in Texas, why do you need to attack that when your other attacks have probably broken all of the feed lines going to it of oil from all the other different sources? The refinery without an input or without power is no good. So yeah, find, fix, and finish. And I've literally, Nate, you've heard of stories like people write to me and they go, oh my God, there's a bike store 3 blocks down from my house and it'll be the only source of transportation in a nuclear war. So I know that they're going to target it. What do I do? And you got to realize their target priorities are a lot different now. They want to instill fear. They want to instill compliance. So it's going to probably be in the European theater or someplace, or I can migrate here, but one nuclear device, half a dozen nuclear device. I would say it's very reasonable to say one would go off 1 month and 6 would go off the following month. Because once it's like Bitcoin breaking 100,000. It's like, okay, sky's the limit, right? It resisted, then it broke through, and now it's fluctuating, above. Once you've broken that limit, it's kind of like asking the girl out for the first date. It's hard. And then once you do, it's like you have a great date. It's like, hey, do you want another date? You want to go out again? Yeah, sure.
So you don't think that it necessarily entails a mutually assured destruction scenario? And then there's the one other point that I wanted to comment on with respect to shooting down ICBMs. I mean, some people will dispute the fact that if North Korea was to fire an ICBM, that we would have the ability to shoot it down. Obviously, it's traveling at Mach 20 or whatever it is. You'd have to intercept it, I presume, in the early phase, which the U.S. has assets in the region.
We've already intercepted an incoming satellite. Remember the satellite that was deorbiting early that had like 2 tons of hydrazine on it? And they modified one of our THAAD, Theater High Altitude Air Defense missiles on an Aegis class weapons cruiser. They already intercepted an incoming satellite.
How fast is the satellite going?
Orbital speed, 18,600 miles per hour. So yeah, we've demonstrated the ability in open source to intercept in multiple phases.
Okay, so I guess, but this is a system that could be overwhelmed.
Sure.
I mean, looking at what the Iranians did in Israel, where they were easily able to overwhelm. I mean, now they have the THAAD system there, so we don't know how that's going to play out, but they only have something like 100 interceptors that they could use at any given time. So, presuming that North Korea has enough decoys, I guess. Anyways,
I doubt they have 2,000 missiles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
or even 200.
Do we have, the question is do we have that many THAAD systems, right? And what is the according to Annie Jacobson, there's something like 42 of these interceptors that are currently active in the United States. But
the better question about North Korea is them being a trigger point. Mm-hmm. What happens if they just attack South Korea and or Japan? Okay, let's say they're the bad boy on the block. They're the loose cannon. So they go ahead and do something. Then China and Russia piles on thereafter. North Korea opens the door and everyone else pours through. In the midst of the confusion, that is a better scenario.
Yeah, it's not going to be an isolated incident, that's for sure. With respect,
everyone's looking for an excuse.
With respect to the mutually assured destruction hypothesis, I think your idea is quite novel with respect to having nuclear weapons pre-positioned is something that seems to escape the imagination of most people nowadays, despite the fact that I believe it was the basis for the TV show Jericho, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And probably many a Tom Clancy novel as well. But yeah, this is an angle that many of us have perhaps forgotten about. But wouldn't that not lead then to a broader exchange?
If it was a surprise, if it was smuggled in and hidden, they're going to want to first find out whose it was. And they can do that by measuring the radioisotopes after the explosion. In fact, they can already go right down and say, yeah, this was our plutonium produced in Hanford and cell number 32 in 1984. I mean, they got such good isotope records and what is produced from that they can actually identify. It's like, this has the signature of a Chinese weapon. This has a signature of a Soviet weapon, made here. This has a signature of another one. And it's like, okay, let's find out whose it was first. The damage has already been done. We got to do a reaction to that. Let's put our shields up, sorting out all of our ships with all our THAAD and every other protection mechanism we have, get the intelligent apparatus going in even a higher gear, and find out exactly who did this, why, and then do a measured appropriate response. I mean, it's like if I walked up to you, Nate, I go, "Hi, Nate, how you doing?" Boom, I knock you right in the nose, and you're bleeding. And that's all I do is you're going to like, Steve, why'd you hit me? You know, I mean, think about it logically. You want to know why did that crazy thing just happen? Who did it? I could have been wearing a baklava, you know, and you want to pull it off and see who did it to you. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of knee jerk, but like I said, go read Andy Jacobson's other, books, Surprise, Kill, Vanish, and maybe you'll understand that that missile probably would have never taken off.
But when you look at something like 9/11, I mean, there definitely was a knee-jerk reaction there. So if we're talking about something on a scale much bigger than that, I imagine that they, plausible deniability or not, they're going to hold somebody to account, and the American people will demand a proportional response. So, you would presume that there would have to be some escalation. But like you, I think that what's been demonstrated in the past few years seems to be that a lot of us thought that there were all these red lines which would immediately elicit a nuclear reaction. And clearly we're in a situation now where Ukraine's firing missiles, with the assistance of NATO, at Russian soil on numerous oblasts, now 3, I think, in total so far, with just ATACMS. And obviously a lot of the ISR stuff is feeding into their use of these drones to do deep strikes, even past Moscow and St. Petersburg. So, this leads me to believe that perhaps there's more rungs of the escalation ladder than we initially thought, that perhaps the use of a tactical nuke or a demonstration won't necessarily go to the full-on nuclear war extent. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what about the theory that Russia's nuclear arsenal is as good as their conventional arsenal? Woefully inadequate, not up to date, and questionable functionality. Why are they playing a game of Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam of I dare you to cross this line? No, I dare you to cross this line. No, I dare you to cross this line. They keep on doing it. I can say one thing is for certain, Nate. What you and I are getting as civilians, I mean, even through the best open source intelligence and everything else and videos and Twitter, it's not the real story. It's not what is really happening. It's not the real motivators. It's not the real objectives of what people are after. We're just dealing with what we're fed and that we can see, and the behind the scenes stuff is going to be completely different situation, which we're not going to really know until after an event.
What did you think of the Russian Reznik demonstration?
Real interesting demonstration. 6 warheads coming down out of the sky. Albeit conventional, but they definitely said, these things work. We can target a location and we can hit it with multiple independent reentry vehicles, multiple warheads. That's a theater scale missile, not an intercontinental ballistic missile.
And do you think that changes the equation at all?
The best thing I can say, Nate, is we can't set a date for something to happen. Okay, it's like it can't be the election, it can't be the inauguration, it can't be this date or that. Historically, I mean, look back through our history from 9/11 to the fall of the Soviet Union to Pearl Harbor to the Cuban Missile Crisis. It has all pretty much been out of the blue as far as we're concerned. Not anticipated, not seen. Now, if you want to prepare yourself, and I did this, I refreshed all my supplies and everything else and made sure I topped off everything before the election. Did I think anything was going to happen during the election? No. Did I think something is going to happen when I least expect it? Yes. Did I use that date as like an internal motivator deadline for me to, get this, double check this, make sure this works, make sure I have these are labeled, these are, all functional. And it's like, do I have enough cat treats for my cat for a year? Yes. Okay. It's just little things like that to double check. But whatever happens, it is going to be out of the clear blue sky. I mean, did you have the fall of Assad in Syria on your 2024 bingo card this year, Nate?
Absolutely not. But I just made a video about this very topic and how these things seem to be happening at just a lightning pace and always out of the blue. So for that reason, these are reminders that we should expect the unexpected. And it's a constant reminder of how quickly things can change and deviate from the path.
The number one fundamental thing behind human evolution and human change is communications. The faster you communicate, the faster you change. The faster you change, the faster you communicate. Communications and information flow and change is rapid. Look at what we've done in 25 years since 2000, as compared from 2000 to 1975. We didn't even have the personal computer off the shelf in 1975. And in 2000, it was the dot-com bubble and computers were wildly available everywhere. And now we're dealing with computers that, we're carrying around in our pocket. Basically this is computational power of a cray. This little phone right here of mine, I got 2 terabytes of storage built into this thing. 2 terabytes. I remember talking to an Intel engineer. He goes, in 1969, we were just trying to hopefully to get memory down to $1 a bit, not a byte, a bit. So yes, very good observation. Things are changing quickly. We're going to have more change in the next 10 years, next 10 minutes, next 10 months, than we have in 5 times that in the past. Obviously. Things are moving. And another good example of this, here's another one for you for your nuclear scenarios. You know why we use uranium-235 in our nuclear power plants, right?
Absolutely not.
Because you get plutonium-239 from it. And these are the items that you use to make nuclear devices. Now, if we took all the geniuses that made our first nuclear device and we wanted to say there was no World War II and we want to do this thing called nuclear power, we probably would have started off with thorium and uranium-233 that you can't make into a weapon because it's more efficient, more plentiful, more economic. Taiwan has had a nuclear power plant for 40 years. What do you think they've been doing? Ukraine has had a nuclear power plant going all the way back to the Soviet Union. It is, in fact, Peter Zion, the economist and analyst from Stratfor and of independent fame, he estimates that Taiwan could have a nuclear device in a few weeks. They already got all the material. It's just some assembly required, and the assembly of a nuclear device is pretty straightforward. It's getting the material that's hard. They estimate Ukraine could have one in like 3 or 4 months as well. They got the material. They've been harvesting it out of their reactors for all these decades and refining it and stockpiling it. They just haven't assembled it into a device yet.
So you're saying that we're using a type of nuclear fuel that was designed for weapons and it's less efficient?
It is absolutely designed for weapons. If you go to the the French breeder style reactor, we only use a fraction of a percentage of our fuel that we put into our nuclear reactors today. In fact, there's not one that's been duplicated. There's always been another development in the reactor that they've done in all of them. The Canadians made breeder reactors, and what they did is they used up like almost the entirety of the fuel. All this thing, what we call nuclear waste that we have outside of all the nuclear power plants and in Yucca Mountain, everywhere else, all of that can be fed back into a breeder reactor to make more electricity. Ask any nuclear physicist. It's pretty straightforward. And most of the times that stuff that is, quote, waste, which is really waste. I did an intro to a book that said why waste is good. And when you have waste, you have an abundance of something. You're making it and using it so good that you have an abundance, and that abundance becomes a resource. Well, usually that waste has too much of plutonium 240 in it, which very much wants to stop the fissile rate. It wants to, what's the word I'm looking for? It wants to go off early, so it wants to fizzle. It wants to have the nuclear reaction is going towards criticality, and then out of nowhere comes a stray neutron, and the whole thing goes and you get 1/100th your yield, and 240 is not good for making implosion device where 239 is. So a lot of our waste fuel may very well have that in it, but it can still be used in other methods to make energy for the entire world. And it's just being stored in large casks safely in a secure environment, waiting for us to utilize the waste as a resource in the future. Someday we will be mining our landfills as well.
And so what about Iran? Are they using this nuclear grade type of fuel, like nuclear weapons?
They are making uranium-235 with centrifuges. Now, here's a fun story, because one of my mentors who was at Los Alamos in 1940s, and he's the one actually who set the time for the first atomic weapon. He was telling me the story of exactly why did we do uranium-235 at Oak Ridge National Laboratories right next to Tennessee Valley Authority, which is hydropower, massive hydropower. It's because you need a great deal of electricity to run these gas centrifuges in order to separate. See, you want uranium-235, and it is 0.7% of uranium-238. Well, as far as you and I are concerned, it's the same chemical, even though it's a different isotope. So it's hard to separate. So you turn it into a gas and you spin it around, and the heavier gas goes to the outside, the lighter gas goes to the inside, and you do the gas separation that way. But we only had one device in World War II that was a gun type weapon. It was two pieces of 235, one shot into the other. Here's a piece of history. You know what the propellant was that shot one half of 235 into the other half of 235 to do Hiroshima?
Not a clue.
Black powder. Black powder and a Navy artillery cannon, specially machined and made for it. But anyways, they were going to do the project, and they just discovered they didn't have enough copper. There wasn't enough copper in the United States to make the cyclotrons to run them at Oak Ridge off of power from TVA. They needed more wire. So do you know where they got the wire?
I have no answers to these questions, Steve.
They went to Roosevelt and said, hey, we need to borrow the silver from the U.S. Mint, our silver reserves. And it's like, you can't have it. It's like, we're not going to destroy it. We're just going to turn it into wire. And they made the wire for the cyclotrons out of our silver reserves. And then when we were done with that, we gave them back the silver, and they melted it back down into bullion, and it was part of our silver reserve for our currency. But it took a tremendous amount of energy to make that first 235 device, which is why they went to a plutonium type device for weapons 2, 3, 4, and 5, because they could make multiple, I think it was less than 10, not more than 10, but greater than 5 a year.
Are you saying then that because Iran is in possession of this 235, it's not as easy to make a nuclear bomb?
Oh, it's much easier to make it with 235. Yeah, okay, it's harder to make the 235. It's just
more energy.
It's easier to make the device.
It requires more energy? That's what you're saying.
There was actually more energy used in electricity to separate the 235 from the 238, from the electricity from the dams of the TVA, than there was in all the energy released in Hiroshima. That includes the light, the radiation, the blast, everything. There was more energy. And so I said to Ed, I go, so you're telling me Hiroshima was basically a water bomb? He thinks, and he looks at me and he giggles. He goes, yeah, it was kind of a water bomb, because there was many times more electricity used to make the 235 for that first device. Remember, this was the first one. Than there was that in the device itself. A little bit of history for you.
Interesting. So, in terms of what you think that Jacobson's book might be getting wrong in terms of mutually assured destruction, because we are told that nuclear war is going to make life unsustainable afterwards. And I've recently did a video on this, and I think it says in the Nuclear War Survival Skills book, part of the reason why this theory was floated was in fact by our adversaries who were trying to demoralize people and get them to not prepare so that we would be less prepared and we would just, cease in our preparations while they continued to build out their civil defense infrastructure.
The amount of myths, if you go on the Daily Mail website and you read the myths, I picked out 3 pages, some of the best ones, because there's myths in the book, but I picked out what people actually said this week of why and categorize them, for our conversation. So we could talk about the scenarios and then talk about the myths.
Sure.
Because I think Jacobson's book is a very legitimate scenario. There are flaws in it. Yeah. Am I an expert, in launching missiles at the USA? No. Could Jacobson be right? Yes. Could part of her be right? Yes. Did she write a good book? Absolutely, she wrote a good book.
So, in terms of nuclear winter, then, can you maybe expand a bit on what we discussed in that video and why it's an unlikely scenario?
Yeah, I mean, all the nuclear devices can't compete with Mount Pinatubo. Okay, their volcanoes will change the climate of the Earth for like a year and a half, and have historically done that. But the amount of power released from a volcano erupting like those big ones, it makes what man does look infinitesimal in power. So,
So why do you think then?
What was your main question?
Well, the main question was with respect to nuclear winter, and you kind of answered it with respect to the volcanoes.
The idea was the nuclear device would go off, the mushroom cloud would go up, it would create a great deal of fires, because when it goes off, you have you have a prompt light pulse, which induces, heat into everything it hits, Terminator, it's like you're going to need 2 million sunblock because it's going to be an awfully bad day. It catches stuff on fire, to a significant radius measured in miles, anything from curtains to dried leaves to whole structures. And then the blast wave comes by. And the thermal pulse for starting fires is actually larger than the blast wave pulse to blow out your windows. So you create square miles of fire, okay? And all that smoke goes up in the atmosphere. All that smoke is basically carbon. And, for all intents and purposes, it's unburnt stuff that goes up in the air. And so a lot of it is going to be pure carbon, just like charcoal, black. And the idea is it goes up the upper stratosphere and blocks out the sunlight, cools the planet, and you have a winter and everything. Well, there just isn't enough of it.
So if, let's say, what is the threshold for a nuclear winter scenario? Like, is it the detonation?
There isn't one. There's not
bombs?
enough. There wasn't enough devices when we had 20,000 devices each.
So you're saying that if all 20,000 nukes went off simultaneously,
40.
If let's say all 40,000 went off, which now would be probably closer to 10,000.
Yep.
Let's just presume, okay, 10,000 nukes go off within a short period of time. You don't think that's sufficient smoke to block out the sun to any significant extent?
Science is clear. Science and the math is absolutely clear. You
So
look at the amount.
Why is this myth still being perpetuated then? Because this is now entered the common, language of people, and people are presuming that is just the de facto outcome.
You're the one with a psychology degree. Tell me why people keep on believing false and stupid things.
Well, I mean, there's a few theories, I guess, but I think it's not so much that people are believing it; it's that it's being promoted by the media and the government, essentially, or the government is sort of tacitly promoting it by not saying this isn't actually the case when they should.
They did say it. The original Nuclear War Survival Skills was published by Oak Ridge National Laboratories, written by Crescent Carney. That's a division of the U.S. government. Says right in the book, underneath myths, nuclear war is false.
But while this myth is being perpetuated in the I guess just in the media, that nobody's stepping in to say, actually, this is untrue, because I think that puts people in a fatalistic mindset where it discourages them to take the precautions because they don't think it's survivable, which doesn't serve the public interest from a civil protection standpoint. So
same thing with EMP. I call EMP the boogeyman of the nuclear world. It's what everyone's scared of, and that's what's least likely to happen. And everyone puts it to a test, is like, lose it EMP proof? Well, then I don't want it. And what do they end up doing? They end up talking to themselves going, well, why should I? There's no hope. Why should I prepare? I can't survive. I can't do this. And they end up finding reasons not to. Fear in the inaction. Remember this, fear in the inaction that comes from it is the worst cancer you can give anyone. Maybe that answers the question about nuclear winter, mutually assured destruction, 1984 scenarios. How many people are talking about hope? How many people are talking about, the spirit? I got another guy in here who comments about, there'll be destruction, but, the spirit of everyone will come together and solutions will be found. People will be evacuated out of Britain. Ships will just show up. And remember in 9/11, the ferries? The ferries just started hauling people off of Manhattan left and right and across the Hudson. Hell, even the Miracle on the Hudson, they came running.
I would say that's, well, I appreciate the optimism. I think that might be a little overly optimistic. Jacobson might make the argument that it's better to scare the living daylights out of people so that, and I'm not saying that this is something I agree with, so that governments will, be less likely to utilize that option. Because if people think it's survivable, or if a military general who's in charge of overseeing whether or not to launch, if he thinks that it's survivable, there's a greater chance then that he might push that button or go, use that option.
They know it's survivable. The top people know it's survivable, yet it is cataclysmic, and no one wants to be the one that does that first. No one wants to be the one with that video on Twitter or X and everything of the mushroom cloud going up over Los Angeles. So no one wants to be the one that does that. It is unthinkable. And the thing is, there are things by far worse than a nuclear device. I keep on telling people, they aren't that big. We're talking about square miles of destruction. We're talking about a radius of less than 10 miles, usually less than 5 miles. The weapons are a lot smaller today because we're more accurate, and they're expensive as hell. So why would you want to put all that material to make a 5 megaton weapon when you could use all that material to make 20 quarter megatons that you can put right on X marked spot? The people making these things aren't dumb. They have a budget too, even though it's a big one. Right. And so they aren't as big as they used to be. And even then, it's not bigger. There are only 2 threats to humanity on the face of the planet. One is an asteroid coming in and doing what it did to the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The other threat is a virus. That can kill more people than anything else. You go ask a scientist what keeps them up at night? Go read Ken Albeck's book from 96 called Biohazard. He was the chief biological warfare scientist for the Soviet Union that defected in 95 or 94, and he wrote the book Biohazard in 96. He outlines Russia's weaponized everything, weaponized smallpox, weaponized tularemia, weaponized anthrax, weaponized bubonic plague, pneumonic plague. And you ask any of the scientists that deal with mass destruction and threats to the public, you ask them what keeps them up the most at night, it's a biological viral weapon. I mean, let alone, it's not just against us. I mean, there's agricultural bioweapons. They can go after our poultry. They can go after our cows with hoof and mouth, which is even more frightening than, looking at chickens and poultry. There's something called wheat rust. They can go after our wheat, our corn, our forms of subsistence and everything else. And, literally the Bible is full of plagues and locusts and, other such things that devastated entire countries and communities. The Irish potato famine.
Well, that's interesting because to me, what you're saying means that they are potentially more likely to utilize that option because they know that it is something that is not going to be as globally catastrophic. I mean, Stephen Harris.
Oh, it'll be more globally catastrophic.
Said it here first. Stephen Harris said it here first, folks. He said that, after they launch the first nuke, they're going to tweet about it on X. So he's not of the belief that the EMP. So tell us a little bit about why you don't think EMPs are a threat.
Well, it's in the list of myths here, and they're saying, oh, nuclear device go off, it's going to be an EMP effect, everything else. There is an EMP effect from a firecracker. You can put a firecracker in a plastic trash can, wrap wire around it, put a voltmeter on it, set off the firecracker. It creates a high temperature plasma on Earth's magnetic field, and you can measure it through the pickup wires and make the needle on your meter go bloop when it goes off. The radius of an EMP on a surface or an airburst above a city, so I'm talking thousands of feet, okay, not hundreds of miles of feet. And the EMP effect is less than the blast wave. So it's like bright light, your radio goes off, and then the blast wave blows you down the road at 600 miles an hour. So what you're talking about, though, is an EMP at like twice the altitude of the space station. And it has to be a big one, a big device that actually depresses the Van Allen radiation belts through the Earth's magnetic field, creating all sorts of hell. And if that was done to the United States, you would kill. If you did a Soviet level EMP and people go, oh, I got this EMP bag. I got a Mylar bag. I got an EMP shield. As soon as the EMP goes off, I'm going to pull out my phone and have my videos and my TikTok and everything else. And it's like, you don't understand. As soon as you pull it out of your bag, there's another one going off tomorrow. An EMP is not a singular event. It's a multiple event. It's today, tomorrow, in 4 days, next week, at the end of the month. They keep on putting more of them out. Why it doesn't harm the military is because they have what's called HEMP, hardening against electromagnetic protection. If you've ever seen an emitter radio and how big it is versus like a Baofeng radio is this big, a military emitter radio is like this big, right? That's because all of the electronics in there have metal oxide varistors and other protection devices literally on every leg of every silicon piece in that entire radio. So when it sees a voltage higher than is acceptable on that lead, it clamps down on it and shorts it to ground, thus protecting the electronics. So it can survive pulse after pulse after pulse after pulse after pulse. They don't shield really in F-16. It's hardened against an electromagnetic pulse to begin with. But I mean, good God, see, the people, they know it will kill 98% of the population of the United States in a year. If an EMP hits from San Diego to Maine, what do you think the response of the United States is going to be?
An EMP expert I just spoke to said that while it's true that the military equipment is hardened, that they still rely on the U.S. power grid. So while it might be true that their devices will still function. Will they have electricity to power it? Is the question in that scenario you're talking about?
Yeah, they got their own. They got their own power. They do have their own power systems for critical infrastructure. I was actually in Cheyenne.
They have backup power, but their primary power source is.
I was in Cheyenne Mountain. I saw what they have. Okay, it's
right.
gargantuan.
Well, that's continuity of government. That's not like the general military. Like the general military is attached to the civilian power grid. They might have diesel backup generators, but yeah, sure. Like what you're talking about is something that who knows? I mean, Cheyenne Mountain is. I mean, we could speculate on that if you want in terms of what else is out there now. I presume that there's a lot bigger complexes than Cheyenne Mountain nowadays. But
well, Cheyenne Mountain was a command center. I mean, I can, one way to know if someone was really at Cheyenne Mountain, you ask them the name of the ducks on the ponds of water that are stored underneath the mountain.
The ducks.
But they have their own power. Some places have their own hydropower. And that's just not going to stop. I mean, the military isn't worried about, losing its power. Hell, the military doesn't even have shelters on major bases for it's enlisted, for the people on the base. I was just up at the air show working for Air Force Association, and I was on the Selfridge base, and there's no shelters. There's no shelters up there. There's no shelters. And it was one of the first air bases in the United States. There's no shelters for the general military. It's one of those long runways. They figure it's going to be gone.
So you're saying that EMP from the nuclear blast, air burst, ground burst, not a big deal, but it is a legitimate threat from a high altitude.
From a spatial one and it's not a small nuclear device, it's a gargantuan nuclear device. They got to get it up there.
How many megatons do you figure it have to be?
In someplace in megatons. And we just recently, I think, proved in open source that North Korea actually created a fusion device rather than a fission device, which is monumental because the people that taught me that literally a fusion device like the Teller-Ullman design is 1,000,000 times harder and 1,000,000 times more expensive than a fission device. So for North Korea to pull off a legitimate fusion device, which according to all of the external readings of our measuring of what they did underground, says it was too damn big of a device to have been a simple fission device. Even though we've made fission devices bigger than smaller fusion devices, it's just a lot of material and it's very expensive. So the likelihood of them going to that level, I mean, they can't even keep the lights on for the country. If you look at the satellite photos of North Korea, where do you think they're going to get the electricity to make all the material for a fusion device? But can they get material from other countries? Yeah.
So
do they have the will? Yeah. Will they find a way? Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have devices now? Yes. Does Pakistan? Yes. Does India? Yes. I think even South Africa does.
So just so people remember that we're referencing a lot of this stuff. Stephen's the adjunct author of this book, and there's a chapter right at the beginning called Nuclear War Myths. And so if anybody thinks that Stephen's talking out of his butt, go and read that book and you'll quickly realize that he's not. Okay. And
you can get the book for free at that website, nuclearwarsurvivalskills.com. The original version is free to download. There's no sign up. There's no funnels, no tricks, no nothing. Go get the original version. And if you like it, you can get the updated version that I spent God knows how many months writing from Nate at Canadian Preparedness.
It really is a good book. I mean, it really is a great book. People really need to, just open a few pages and you'll quickly see what I mean. It's very
the first 34 pages of the original book. If you do anything, just read the first 34 pages of the original book.
So in terms of myths, then, we've talked about a few things. Is there any other really big myths that irritate you when you hear people talking about it?
Nate, it all boils down to this. People find reasons not to. And when COVID started, I developed a saying. I guess ended up being very blunt and very blatant to people. And I'd say, shut up, stop finding reasons not to do it, start finding reasons to do it. If you're going to want to survive what's coming up, albeit a hurricane, an earthquake, an ice storm, your neighbor, going crazy in your car with a bat, you are going to have the want. You're going to have the desire to live, to protect your family. For those that you love, you're going to have the want, the confidence of yourself. And it's like, this is a hill you're dying on. Look at the people in North Carolina and Georgia that were hit with the catastrophic flooding effects of what wasn't even a major hurricane that dumped all the rain in that area. I mean, the way you know this from your education, how do you unite a squabbling village or tribe or population? You give them an external threat. You have to have faith in your common person, in your neighbor. Everyone around you is a resource. And I came up with a saying that I got famous for back in the survival podcast days. And I said, it is easier to feed your neighbors than it is to shoot them. Of course, one person comes up to me and goes, I noticed you didn't say not to shoot your neighbors, but it's just easier. I go, yeah, it's easier. What are your neighbors, Nate? Is one an electrician? Is one a nurse? How far away does a doctor that lives? Okay, an electrician, a plumber, anyone, a car mechanic, any one of the skilled trades or the engineerings and the sciences. How many of these people make up your personal community? It's through all of them and with them that you survive. Now, you might be eating your wonderful freeze-dried food that you have. You'll have beans and rice and corn for them. And believe me, if they don't eat it on day one, they'll happily eat it on day two. So there's nothing to say you got to have all of your preparedness for everyone else. But first thing I did on 9/11 is I went and withdrew the last $180 I had to my name out of the bank in 2001. And I went north by about 30 minutes to a grain elevator. And I spent, I think, it's either $109 or $89. I got 600 pounds of corn, and I brought it back in my pickup truck because we had no idea what was coming next. Were those planes trailing a biological out their rear as they were flying into the World Trade Centers? We didn't know. And I went up and I got that extra corn because corn compared to wheat is very affordable, and it's also very flexible. And sorry, I'm sitting Indian style in my shelter and my legs are falling asleep. But I went out and bought 600 pounds of corn for my neighbors, for myself and everyone else, because I had everything and the knowledge and the grinders and everything to turn that into food for those around me.
Well, you're talking about budgetary constraints on people, and that's something a lot of people can relate with nowadays. And I think it was quite timely that you partook in that article for the Daily Mail entitled How to Survive a Nuclear Apocalypse for 72 Pounds. So what were some of the tips that you provided people in that article?
He priced in everything. He priced in a 22-pound shovel. Everything is taxed over there and everything else. So he priced in a 22-pound shovel and a saw and
well, a third
everything
of that
else.
Was a shovel?
Yeah, a pound is worth more than $1.
So the shovel is to dig an emergency.
Oh yeah, he priced that in. He put a number in the title to grab people's attention.
Okay. So
which was a good idea.
Yeah, and in the book you explain to people how you can dig a hole to survive it.
Yeah, I told him, I go, look, they call backhoes JCBs in England, okay? I go, look, if something's really coming, what you really want to do, you want to have an extra copy of the book, a couple extra copies, you get your neighbors together and everyone else, you go find a guy that has a backhoe, like a landscaping company. And I already identified all of them around me in the 90s when I was doing a lot of this work. And I had it on a map of who had what, great big backhoes, like the ones you see on Gold Rush for digging gold. I went and identified them, and there's football fields, like American football fields, not soccer. Now there's soccer fields too, all around me at different schools. And it's like, just start digging a trench with that great big hoe. It's so easy with that thing. It's like about 3-4 feet wide, 4 feet deep, much like this shelter you see I'm in right now. Just dig it all the way back and keep on digging and go and get doors out of houses and fences and everything and lay them across it. And then put waterproofing in forms of plastic sheeting and tarps and shower curtains, anything over it, and then start putting 2 to 3 feet of earth in a mound over these things, over your doors that are straddling your narrow trench. It's like, yeah, you're in an area 3 feet by 4 feet, maybe 20 feet long, depending how many people you got in there. There's nothing to say that they can't dig that thing the entire 100 yards of the football field, and there can't be 20 families in there with like 8 different openings going in and out of it. And it's like, I don't want to do all that work. You know how hard it is to dig a hole? It's like, I want to go to the guy with the backhoe. It's like, hey, LA got nuked, DC got nuked, New York got nuked. It's like, how long before they think you nuked Detroit? Oh, I don't know, man. My family's scared. My wife is petrified. We're trying to keep the kids away from the television. And it's like, hey, man, here, I'm going to give you a copy of this book. You got enough, you get your backhoe. We're going down to the field, the football field at the intermediate school. And it's like, we're going to start digging trenches and we're going to start doing it. And we're going to let people replicate what we're doing. I'm going to tell them and show them, and we're all going to be there. And together we're all going to get through this. Now, I'm in a 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot radiation shelter. Does that mean I have to be in here all the time? No. I got a protection factor of about 250 to 300 in here. So I'm getting about 300 times less radiation that there would be outside. And all the people in this article in the comments all talked about England getting hit, London getting hit by a nuke and them being underneath it. They never once thought maybe Russia gets angry and nukes Berlin or Warsaw, and the winds are going in the right way that it circulates the radiation back over London. You just need a fallout shelter for a lot of your situations. I can still come out of my shelter and go up and use the shower or the bathroom. I got water for that. I have alternative toilets. I got sitting next to me 80 gallons of water. I got more. This entire place is lit up off my battery bank that's not in here. It's 12 feet that way against the other wall. It doesn't have to be in here. This is just a spot where I can sleep and stay. And I got my different radiation meters. You got your little one that you sell? See, I got a carbon monoxide meter. I can heat myself with natural gas or propane down here. I got a couple different radiation meters and everything else, so I can measure the radiation inside, outside, know what I'm getting inside, know what's outside, and everything else. And it's like, maybe I only need to sleep in here. Maybe I spend 18 out of 24 hours in here. I can measure it and quantify it. And this just lets me, I don't have to live in here, but this just protects me from the radiation that's on the outside. Now, I benefit from having a basement. I'm not really anticipating Detroit being flattened by a blast. If so, well, I'm far enough away that, I might get all my windows blown out upstairs and a few other things, but, I probably won't blow the house over at 600 miles an hour. But in all my food and my other stuff, my flour and water and cooking oil and everything is all around me in my water. It's all around me in layers such that it's radiation shielding. I got a 55-gallon barrel right here at the entrance right there. And that is on a dolly. So even if I wanted to prevent more radiation, make less radiation coming through this opening, I just pull the 55-gallon barrel on the dolly up to the opening. and I can block off the opening if I have to reduce the radiation coming in. And it's already holding my water. It's not even my primary water. So water is a very good radiation shield. You can do this with cinder blocks. You can do this with milk crates full of dirt. It's just endless the number of ways you can do this. You and I talked about me coming up there when we first started, and it's like, hey, let's make a shelter in your shop. Let's take a shelter right out of the book and let's adapt it for, in your shop and film the whole thing and show everyone that, you can do that.
And this is good information too, because it's just like any piece of gear. I mean, you can go out and buy the $100,000 bunker, which is fine. It's dual purpose, great quality stuff over at Atlas. But, it's just like you can spend $1,000 on a knife, or you can maybe spend $20 on a knife. It's not going to do the job perhaps as good. It's not going to look as nice, but it'll do the job. And I think what you're saying is important, because there's a lot of people right now who are on a very tight budget and they're worried about this stuff. And I think what you're saying is very reassuring to know that you can do this on a very limited budget if necessary. It really just is a matter of keeping yourself out of the radiation for the first couple weeks.
Actually, it's more like 3 days. No, I'm not saying that as a hard and fast rule of thumb for you to take to the bank, but the it says, the half-life is 4 days, or the half-life's 4 billion years. Which one's worse? The short half-life is the worst, and it dies off the quickest. And so the shorter the half-life, the more danger it is, but it's also the quicker you can come out of your shelter, because there's the less radiation that there is in the entire situation.
And I guess it depends on where on the map you are. It could be, it's going to depend on the proximity to the fallout.
Well, tell you what, here's the ultimate solution, okay? I got a vest for this little creature here, and I put this radiation
That's a different one from last time. Is that the same one that you had last time?
No, she died a year ago.
Okay.
Juliet died a year ago. Tier 1 Tabby died of kidney failure, but I can attach this radiation meter to her, and she's trained. I ring a bell outside, and there's treats. So she runs outside. The Geiger counter, actually the scintillator, reads the radiation. She comes back in when I ring another bell. I get the outside radiation measurement.
So but isn't the cat going to die then from radiation?
No. No, I just want to know how much is out there.
You just pissed off every cat lover on the channel. You realize that?
No, if you knew how spoiled this thing was.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
You're not going to get a lethal dose, pretty much. Even at 100 rads an hour, even 1,000 rads an hour, like full fallout from the missile fields. You got to be outside half hour or more to get a full lethal dose of radiation. I mean, literally, I can get up and go outside for whatever reason. If there's 100 millirads of radiation outside, which is busting the OSHA limit of 50 millirads a year in 1 hour, I can go outside. As long as I'm not inhaling the radioactive particles or drinking them or something like that, I'm absolutely positively, fine. I can go out and get radiation exposure. The numbers are 3, 25, and 100. You don't want more than 3 rads a day. You can do that every day for a long period of time. Crescent Carney and Edwin York and others have proved this. Ed set the number of the permissible exposure level for a fighter pilot at 25 rads, because that's where there was a biological blood detection change. And 100 rads of total exposure over like a day, a week, an hour, whatever, something short, not a year. 100 rads is LD 1%. That's where you are at a 1% chance of dying. That's where you're probably going to lose your hair and probably puke, is at a total dose of 100 rads in a short period of time, measured in hours, days, and or weeks. Not 100 rads over a year or over 10 years or over a lifetime. Despite what people think, the other thing, there's something called linear no threshold, which is false, which says radiation is cumulative throughout your entire life, and it's not. And linear no threshold says, okay, one person jumps off a 1,000-foot cliff, right? Are they going to be dead?
Probably.
No parachute, no wingsuit. One person jumps off a 1,000-foot cliff, they're dead. If 1,000 people, is linear no threshold says, then if 1,000 people jump off a 1-foot curb, one of them will die. So if you have 1,000 people jump off a 1-foot curb onto the street, do you think any one of them is going to die, Nate?
Yeah, if it's an old lady with a bad hip, possibly.
No, I'm talking about you and me. Not even better than me. And that's what it says. If one person dies,
I get what you're saying,
rads, and 1,000 people get 1 rad, then 1 out of the 1,000 will die. And that, linear no threshold has been proven to be a myth, just like nuclear winter.
Is there any other considerations with that 72 pounds that you would advise people to do besides a shovel?
I would say spend the money and get an extra copy of Nuclear War Survival Skills to bribe the guy with the backhoe to dig the damn hole for you. I mean, literally, a guy with a backhoe, and you knock the doors out of your house using like a Diablo blade, just ripping right through the hinges. You can literally build that entire shelter. I mean, if you and I did that, I bet you and I could do it in less than an hour.
Really, just a few cents worth of diesel.
And a backhoe. Why use your hands when you can use power equipment, and you can get the power equipment for the price of, here, do you want an extra copy of this book? I'm going to show, I need you to dig some trenches for me, and we'll dig some for you and your family.
I mean, these are things that I would say a person should do well in advance, but something like that is more impromptu, right? Like it's not, I suppose.
No, I mapped them all out. I had 12 of them mapped out within a mile of my house of where to go to get a backhoe.
Just holes that were pre-dug, or you're talking
about backhoes to dig holes, trenches, to go to the football field and dig trenches, or to do it in my backyard, or do it in their backyard. But principally, we're going to go to the football field and dig them up.
I mean, that is a solution, but it still is ideal to have something done in advance, right? Because you don't know if you're going to have enough time to dig or go and haggle with a guy who just happens to have a backhoe and is free that day. You want to do this ahead of time. If anything, even just pre-digging a trench and, whatever, there's all kinds of uses for, I guess, a hole in the ground.
I would do something inside your house first before I dug a trench outside. I mean, if nukes went off in Europe right now and I was with you, I'd go, come on, Nate, we're going to dig some trenches and everything else. If you were in an area. And those might not even be for you. Those might be for your employees. It might be for the neighbors around your business and around your house and everything else. If nukes were popping off in other places in the world, I would be digging trenches. If they weren't popping off like they are right now, I'd be doing some variation of this with buckets and dirt or cinder blocks or sandbags.
Inside the house is what you're saying.
Yes, inside the house. You can even do it in a closet underneath the stairs. Other people have reinforced cargo containers. Keep in mind, I said reinforced. You just can't bury a sea can, a cargo container. The walls will collapse in. Ask your buddy at Atlas. Also, I can't say enough good things about Atlas Survival Shelter. That man will give you, he wouldn't cheat you if his life depended on it, and he'd give you the shirt off his back.
He's a cool dude.
He is the best.
Okay, so in terms of, besides getting the book, then, is there anything else you can think of that, there's a wealth of information in the book, and
there is a whole section in the book on pre-crisis preparation. There's a whole section in the book on pre-crisis preparation. So you want to get, in advance of a crisis, what you can't get after the crisis happens. And I got one of the simplest methods of food storage for a person. And, when I thought I couldn't make it any simpler, I made it simpler. And it's on my website. And I call it the freezer method. So you go into, well, it's not Walmart where you're at. It's Canadian Tire, right? But you go on Walmart.
We have lots of Walmarts.
So you see all of these meats and cheeses that aren't refrigerated. They're hanging on hang tags and everything else. There's a bunch of shelf-stable food in there. And it's good for what? A year, 2, 5, 6 months? How long do you think that food is good for if you freeze it at -5 in a freezer?
A lot longer.
Decades, right? So the idea is you go to the store and you get a lot of these foods that are shelf stable and are usually pretty delicious. You're going to have pretty what most people could consider snacks are going to become a meal, and you're going to freeze them. So when the power fails, all you do is open your freezer, because now they just begin their life as being shelf stable. And that is a very easy way to build up a month of food, or 2, or 3, or more. But first, let's get you started. Let's start with saying we want to have a good month. And you will literally see me in that video going through the store with my camera, showing you what I bought, me buying it, and me freezing the stuff and everything else, and why this is stable, why this is not. We have a lot of cheeses like Laughing Cow and Baby Bell cheese that are in the cooler section, but they're shelf stable. It's like eggs. Eggs are shelf stable, yet we have them in the refrigerated section all the time. It's just part of our culture. And in case anyone's wondering, she's getting love below the camera.
We can see her tail popping up. So, well, I want to thank you for coming out today, and I really would encourage people to go and check out this book and check out the previous videos that we've done with Steve. Where can people find more information on what you do?
The best way is at shop.harris1234.com, or you can also just go to harris1234.com. There's a wealth of information. You can go to Nuclear War Survival Skills. That's with an S. Where's my book? Juliet? She was sitting on the book. So that with a www and a .com after it. You can go there, download the book for free. Like I said, there's no funnel. There's no upsell. There's no sign up. You can just download it. I pay for the bandwidth.
Download it, but make sure you have a paper copy, because you might not have the internet, or
if you want it right now, you can download it right now and buy a copy from Nate or Amazon or wherever you want.
Well, you could download it and print it off. I mean, if a person has a printer, they can do that, but that's kind of a pain in the ass too. So.
Well, the original copy is like 283 pages. I think this is 343 pages. But yes, if you want to print it off, because I have this thing printed on demand in 10 different countries. Yeah. So they'll print it and ship it to you right away. It's not going across the Atlantic or the Pacific to you. They even print it in Japan.
Good stuff. Well, I want to thank you for coming out today. And guys, make sure you go and pick up that book and check out those websites for more info. Thanks.
And if you're in Canada, I really want to encourage you to just Nate's the one that brought you me. He's the one that brought you this information. It's a $20-something book, US. Please go get it from Canadian Preparedness. And you ship to the USA as well, even for free for like orders over a certain amount.
Yeah. So, there's lots of options for sure. But anyways, we got to get going here. So thanks a lot, Steve, for coming out.
Thank you very again for having me on, Nate. And remember, it all comes down to you wanting to survive and you finding a way and you figuring it out. It all comes down to your drive, your desire, your want. So please find it and use it.
The best way to support this
So what's going on, Baffle Gang? You might want to stop rolling your fat doobies tonight because holy smokers, it ain't no jokers. You might want to hide your kids, hide your wives, because we gotta talk about these alien twats. We gotta talk about these bozos, these bastards. What's going on? We got so many video clips right now that are going viral. And you know, yesterday we started the video off with the fighter jet shooting down allegedly a UFO or a UAP or a drone. We just don't know what is shot down. But this is that video, right? It is going viral right now. And then it took off. We covered that in depth in the last video, right? So this video, I'm seeing a lot more people post it as well. It's just unclear as to what went down. And we also got plenty of other footage. We even got Dr. Steven Greer chiming in, and he's talking about it. If you know about him, you know. If you don't know, well, you're gonna find out. We also got this clip where we got a bunch of UFOs just flying past the plane. We're gonna be taking a look at that, and we got just plenty more footage here, okay? Really quickly, guys, I want to say this here. Thank you guys so much for all the love. I mean, come on now, man. Like, I never do numbers like that. This was the last video. 24,000 likes. I mean, damn, man. So thank you guys so much for all the love that you guys are showing on these videos. And also shout out to Sean and Birmingham for being a member on the channel. I never asked, but these two gentlemen just became members out of nowhere. So shout out to you guys. And of course, shout out to all the previous members on the channel as well. And let's actually jump into it. So this is that first video that I wanted to show you guys. It might be old, but wait for it. Roll it.
You could hear it a little bit as it went by, as the two ships went by. You could hear a little bit of a disturbance. With that in mind, watch this. Okay, see how that happened?
Yeah.
Boom, right away the first one comes in. It's all broken up digital signal. Here you go. There's the first one. Watch, here you go.
Anytime now.
Boom, it's breaking up everything.
Bam. Okay, so breaking up
everything.
everything.
The second one goes by. Come on, everybody.
Get it together.
This is very slow-mo. Look at that. Take a second. Look at that ship.
You want it
Folks,
faster.
that is a starship. That is a Napoleon ship. They love the circular thing.
Yeah, that, look at that, man. I don't know if how old this is, but damn, if any of you know, definitely let me know. And of course, this is that clip that's going viral as well. We talked about it. Fighter jet shooting. People saying that, some are saying it was in Israel, some are saying it was in New York City, but it's being reported that this was in New York City. Yeah, if it was in New York City, I suspect that we would have been getting headlines everywhere. But we're not. Maybe it's real and they don't want to tell the public about it. This is why. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's fake. I want to know your expertise, but this video is blowing up right now, you know. And shout out to the homie Stunts for adding me here. Check this, roll it. So you got this clip, right? I've seen it, so it might be. I'll just play for you first, okay? Got that dramatic music, you know what I'm saying? Uh-oh. Okay. Bam. Oh my goodness. So you get the aftershock as well, right? So, I mean, it seems like a missile to me, right? Not necessarily a UFO crashing or anything like that. I'm gonna get your expertise. And let's get down to this one, okay? Roll it. It says, what's going on in San Diego? Oh man, aliens coming before GTA 6? Damn it, man.
Look at this. Look at him spraying.
What's going on? The drone seem to be taking action as of today. I think it's on a pee break. It's pissing. Yeah, you don't want to be in that way. If you ever played Call of Duty Zombies, it seems like a mystery box, right? Just for, yeah, like for a, if you look at it, if you glance at it, it looks like a mystery box. Man.
California, in fact, declaring a state of emergency now.
What the freak? Oh, no, is that the, Y'all see that? What in the actual? No, these are spirits of the dinosaurs. Hurry up!
Dinosaurs? Look. Did she say dinosaur something? What the hell? Okay, so she really thought that we were gonna go extinct like dinosaurs?
Look.
Man. Holy, what the hell did crash? Looks like a chopper. Man. Yeah, guys, hide your kids, hide your wives. Damn, man, we're witnessing all
Thank you.
that.
What is going
We're witnessing all that before GTA 6. That's insane. Mysterious drones continue to plague skies across country.
on out there? What are people seeing?
Well, it's a complex story to make it very succinct. We did predict this 30 years ago that they would begin to launch some activity equivalent to a false to make it look like there's some sort of alien attack or threat.
And yeah, this one, we had that recently. Phoenix Lights similarities are big right now. Seems like Phoenix Lights, huh? Couple of triangle Doritos shape. Can a brother get some Doritos? Come down here. Come, let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk. Come down here. Let's talk. Why you guys just what you guys doing up there? Come down. Let's talk. They got parking brakes on by the looks of it.
Back to the drones. Can you unequivocally say that none of the drones that are being spotted are DoD assets or something that's being tested within the Defense Department? Are all of these either civilian or otherwise, but just not Department of Defense drones?
You're talking about the drones in New Jersey up and down the... Yes, they are not DoD assets.
None of them are?
To my knowledge, none of them are.
Okay, and are there any sort of experimental programs going on where maybe they're, drones are being tested that...
To my knowledge, no.
In reality, it's a response to what's happening. And I've recently told the incoming members of the administration this and people at the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee that we have a team of about 6 different black sites that have been running illegal projects related to so-called UAPs and UFOs coming forward in the next 30 days or so. They will bring forth dispositive evidence of this and the fact that these programs have been run illegally and outside of constitutional oversight. This is a ramp up to divert attention from that activity and could lead to some other events that would be catastrophic.
In the next 30 days? Okay, when was this recorded? I suspect just recently, but what date exactly? When are you guys watching this video? Maybe you're watching this video in 2050. Did GTA 6 release? Let me know, man. All of this is really going on, man. So next 30 days, right? And Dr. Stephen Greer, if you're aware of him, let me know your thoughts. You believe him, you don't believe him, and here's the thing though. Dr. Stephen Greer is one of those guys that have been around for a very long time, and he has claimed that he is aware, and he also made very good documentaries though, right? And in those documentaries, I mean, one of them is Cyrus. Wait for it, we got plenty more footage here that I want to share with you. Even got like UFO stuff here, right? He made Cyrus, Contact with the Fifth Kind, or something like that, right? If you've seen it, you know what I mean. But Google Dr. Stephen Greer documentaries, and I definitely recommend you watching whenever you get the time, because in most of his documentaries, he brings forward hundreds of witnesses. It's not like one guy from the streets. He brings up like hundreds of witnesses, and most of them are high-ranking officials, whether that be military, whether that be cops, or government employees as well, right? Rogue employees, former employees, ex-employees, right? He brings literally people from all walks of life, from every different kind of field, and they share their expertise, not just expertise, but what they've seen and all that. Yeah, so his documentaries are really, really good, and the conclusion is that we're not alone, essentially. So I don't know about that one, but let's roll it.
On a secret program that went black, but illegal black, back in the late 1950s. So we're into 65, 70 years of some very dangerous operations. Now, these men that are defecting are coming out of some sites I've been at. I was in a helicopter last year, which after that I was almost killed, frankly. And we were over these black sites and saw the openings that go into underground facilities where there are the man-made UFOs that come out, but also where they have illegal electromagnetic pulse weapons where they target and down the extraterrestrial vehicles that are then reverse engineered.
Okay, let me stop you right there, Dr. Greer.
But if this non-human...
Yeah, pump the brakes though, pump the brakes.
Intelligence is so advanced, and at least some of them are malevolent, why haven't they destroyed us already? Perhaps some fragile yet combustible détente has been reached. Grush has written an internal document about his discoveries that refers to agreements that risk putting our future in jeopardy.
And it's quite clear that you're talking about agreements between America
and non-human intelligences. Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements between non-human intelligences and the American government?
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
The United States government knew about the ET presence no later than July of 1947 in Roswell.
Roswell, right? Yeah, that's what started it all by the looks of it. At first they said that, yeah, UFO crash, and it was a reported saucer crash, something like that in the newspaper, and then later on they retracted that and they said it was a balloon crash, and I believe later on they said that it was a military exercise, was some secret stuff that they were testing, some bull squash like that, right? But people claimed, whistleblowers claimed that there were bodies as well that they recovered. There was one ET, whether you want to believe it or not, this is the conspiracy, it's not my opinion, okay? But they said that, yeah, they recovered one body and they brought him to Groom Lake, Area 51, right? Now, Area 51, it's been claimed that there's another Area 52. That's kind of like the code word, right? And that's where they transfer stuff over, and it's not necessarily... Because Area 51, pretty much everybody's aware of, right? Whether you're a believer or not, it's a separate thing, but everybody's aware of. So there's just crazy amount of conspiracies right now, man. Holy smokers, it ain't no jokers, right? So that's what started it all, the Roswell. And ever since then, we're seeing just UFOs after UFOs, footage after footage, and now with AI as well, it's very, very hard to say which is real, which is not. And yeah, right, before you have to worry about CGI, now of course you gotta still worry about CGI, but you also gotta worry about like the fake clips and all that. But Dr. Stephen Greer has been around for way too long, and it's just either you believe him or you don't believe him, right? Simple as that. And then of course you got Bob Lazar too. You know what I'm saying? Any of you know Bob? You know Bobby? You know Bob?
Made the decision at that time to keep that from the American people.
Yeah, America.
Almost exactly 5 years later to the week, there was a significant flyover of Washington, D.C. The U.S. government had a problem. General John Sanford made the response for the government, which was equivocative, but not unreasonable. But also there came a response from Don McKeough, who flat out said, these are extraterrestrials. It's not human. Again, the government made the decision to keep this from the American people. 10 years later, 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we almost had a nuclear war. Only 4 years after that, these craft started appearing over our nuclear facilities and shutting our nuclear weapons down.
Yeah, that
How many
too,
times this happened in the 60s, we don't know. Because the Air Force probably at some point was able to keep a much tighter rein on the outcome. But witnesses for a number of these shutdowns came forward. They have been trying to testify before Congress for 30 years, which is when they initially made the decision to start coming forward, led by Captain Robert Salas. The government has not allowed them to testify, and in fact, it has virtually ghosted them. It was about the only thing they could do.
They ghosted them just like my ex ghosted me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, that's crazy. But what about the alien baddies, though? Like, do they have, like, alien baddies? I want to know, man.
Right? And so that was in the 60s. Again, the government kept this from the American people.
Yeah, that's a crime. That's a crime.
Decades went on. And then we start to approach what I think is the end game, the end of the truth embargo. And we start moving into that 7-year period, starting in 2017. But it's not been easy. It's been slow. There's been pushback. There's been some wins and losses, but we are moving toward disclosure without question.
Yeah. I want everyone at home to,
It definitely does feel that way, right? What are your thoughts on the matter? But, I mean, if you're a believer, I guess, you know, I'm a believer. I don't think we're alone, guys. Come on now, man. If what they're telling us is true, that there are billions of planets, billions of galaxies, within each galaxy, there are billions of planets, mathematically speaking, okay, like hand on top of this bottle of water, bruh, mathematically speaking, the probability of us being alone is just 0, okay? I'll just put it straight away. There's just way too much life around you, right? There are probably germs, bacteria walking on top of your forehead, on your face, that's also alive, that's also, you know, life, right? You got different kind of breeds of animals, right? I mean, look at dogs, so many different breeds of dogs, so many different breeds of cats. that's life. You got sea life, right? Ocean life. You got birds. You got so many different mammals and so many different creatures that also went extinct, that used to exist back in the days but now is extinct. So we got, and yeah, they're insects, right? Like I heard about there are 6,000 different 6,000 different species of just the honeybees alone, or the bees alone, right? 6,000 different, some bull squash like that. So there's just way too much life. There's life everywhere on this planet. So I mean, is this the only planet? I mean, to think that, I think that's insane. I mean, us being alone or not alone, both thoughts are equally insane. But let's continue.
Us all to be on the same page. You're saying that we have the technology to shoot ET craft, not of this planet, out of the air, and we are reverse engineering those aircraft.
100%, and there are multiple men coming forward. They've been with JSOC and Special Forces, who are also NOx, an unofficial cover in corporate world. One of them's been there about 29 years and is very senior and has all the evidence, and they'll be releasing the evidence and the information. Now, this creates a dynamic because it's happening before the inauguration. We plan to do it sometime between now and early January.
What?
And I've been working with these men for about 19 months. And
okay, hold up, pump the brakes. Plan to do what? Disclosure, reveal the ALMOs, or before GTA 6? You gotta be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
In early January. And I've been working with these men for about 19 months. And they're serious, and they have the goods. They can prove what they're stating, but they're also going to unmask themselves. They will come forward, the name, rank, serial number, and the whole history of this, including the illegal nature of some of these programs, which we don't have time to go into, but they'll curl your toes, some of the stuff that's been going on. It's quite illegal and very dangerous and horrible. But the technologies, I mean, remember the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty requires that we have no electromagnetic pulse
Could you give me, Dr. Greer, could you give us a quick summary? I'd like to hear some of the toe.
Yeah, like, can a brother perhaps get to have like a quick little summary as to what's gonna be revealed and what's not? And what if they don't reveal it? Then what? Because the disclosure thing is like, has been going on for way too long, right? They're gonna disclose it, but they're gonna do it, and they never do it. There seems like they're drip feeding us. I'm not denying, it seems like that it's ongoing, like slowly but surely. You know, when the Pentagon, I believe it was 2017, like the gentleman earlier said, right? 2017, the last 7 years. So I feel like it was 2017 when the Pentagon revealed the footage of the fighter jet chasing down the UFO, right? The black and white, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like that video, we've seen it to death now. We've seen it so many times. It's like, bro, every time that video comes up, I'm like, okay, now, bro, I must shut it down, you know, because we've seen it way too much of that. But the Pentagon has revealed that. Whether you're gonna believe it or not, that's up to you. Why did they reveal it? Could be multiple reasons behind it, right? Yeah, we can only assume here, but seems like that they're slowly but surely getting us ready to the idea of, hey, you know, disclosure, we're not alone. Hey, man, there are alien baddies out there waiting around, you know, just like how you got hot singles in your area, you're gonna have hot singles in your galaxy too. Bruh. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's what it is.
Toe curling details, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, for example,
here are some of the toe curling details, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, for example, they have been able to confirm one of our whistleblowers' testimony, who's a Marine, Michael Herrera, who was present at an event, stumbled across an event during a rescue mission after the Indonesian earthquake in 2009, and he came across a platform, a man-made object, about 300 feet around, that was manned by covert human operators who were American, and they had boxed up and crated up humans that they were trafficking, that had oxygen tanks on this tank, and they were being moved to a black site for various types of human experimentation and use.
No.
It's horrific, some of the actions. The main operator from two of these black sites that I've been at, I will not discuss where they are right now.
Okay.
It'll be disclosed fairly soon. He actually had personal knowledge of that. So when this whistleblower came forward, who was taken to the Pentagon Aero Office and Senate Intelligence Committee, he approached me and confirmed all of it. And so he said, not only that, but it's way worse than that. So there are some really worrisome programs going on without the oversight of the president or the Congress, and that has to get corrected because it's dangerous. Now, all these drones and everything going on is both a diversion, but an attempt to create a psychological warfare,
Right, a
psyop.
psyop to distract us.
And that's really what.
You know what? Like I believe this one, to be honest, though, because there are a lot of people are divided with it, right? A lot of people are believing that it's the drones that are made by us. It's just the drones. Some are saying, nah, bro, it's UFOs, aliens. And of course, you got other people saying it's the angels, it's the demons, it's this and that, right? Now, I believe, and respectfully, like, it's your belief, it's your opinion, everybody's allowed to have their opinion, and I definitely want to know your perspective on it too. I'm a believer that we're not alone, right? But you might not be, and that's completely all right. That's completely fine. So you got multiple sides to the story, right? Some people believing it's just the drones that are ours. I believe that's true. We have the technology for that, right? I believe that's true. And also there's conspiracies, whether you want to believe it or not, that's up to you. But there are conspiracies that do suggest that we have reverse engineered the UFO crafts as well. Okay, and because of that, this is why technology is advancing the way it is. And you got drones that might be reversed engineered stuff from the actual UFOs or crap like that, or might not be. But I do believe that they're mixing in these drones that are ours with UFOs. Maybe they're going there to investigate, maybe it's to distract, maybe it's both. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, that's what it feels like is going on right now.
What it is, but it could escalate to something very dangerous. I mean, yesterday I was told that I personally might be arrested, that there will be a character assassination plot against me that will come out soon.
Check this out. This is
What the hell?
A clip from an airline. So this guy's on this airplane.
Yo, if Dr. Stephen Greer gets arrested, what the hell?
Filming out his window, and these things follow the plane, I think, for a long period of time. Okay, it's got to be at least 30 minutes minimum, I would say, because now it looks like it's starting to get dark, right?
Yeah, this is one of those clips that we saw earlier, but 30 minutes.
There's numerous. Here, I backed it up a little bit.
Look at that.
See, look at that. It's actually in the front. It's in the back. All on the side of this plane. Obviously, it's gotten much darker. They're still there. Check this out.
Man. So they've been following them for 30 minutes.
Zooms in on it, and they're still there. They're still there.
Yeah.
370. And zoom right here. Wait, here. There's the second one, and here the.
Okay, so this is the claimed Malaysian flight that got disappeared because of the ALMOs, the UFOs, and all that. Now, this one I believe was proven fake, right? I don't believe into that, but if you do, hey, you do that, right? You believe it, you believe it. You don't believe it, you don't believe it. But I personally, my opinion, only my opinion, I don't believe in that one. But it's a real mystery as to what happened to the flight I believe MH370, something like that, right?
Third UFO comes in. And then you'll.
All right, so they're like rotating around this plane, as you can see there. And he says they're making some sort of field or whatever. I'm not sure. I don't know what is going on here, but apparently they're all just rotating around this plane. And then
it disappears, right?
The plane is supposed to disappear. So again, like, I don't know if this is real or just some fake thing. Who knows? But as you can see here, they're doing some vibration thing between them all, and it disappears. I believe.
Nah. 2 months ago, during a talk at Yale, Danny Sheehan said aliens are coming to intervene because they can't allow us to destroy the life-generating capabilities of the planet, and the government knows this.
This is on Reddit. 2 months ago, during a talk at Yale, Danny Sheehan said aliens are coming to intervene.
Let's see what goes. Let's see what happens. If you want to see that fighter jet video and other clips, like the fighter jet shot down a UFO allegedly, right? Click on this video on the screen, check it out, and I'll see you right there. If you already seen it, then check out the video on the left.
Trump has weighed in on the mystery drone sightings seen in the US in recent days. Over the past week or so, the FBI has received thousands of reports of mystery drone sightings.
Right now, officials are trying to track down multiple drone devices that are spotted in the sky on the East Coast. And there are growing calls this afternoon for action as these mysterious objects continue to be reported.
Silent triangles in the night sky sounds like the title of a sci-fi thriller, doesn't it? But for residents of New Jersey, it's not a movie, it's their reality. Imagine you're driving along a quiet rural road under a blanket of stars when out of nowhere a massive triangular object hovers silently above you. It has lights on its underside, 3, maybe 4, steadily glowing as if it's sizing you up. There's no hum, no whir of machinery, not even the faint buzz of a conventional drone. Just an eerie silence that somehow feels louder than any noise could. Welcome to New Jersey's most unsettling mystery. Silent giants in the night sky. These so-called drones, if you can even call them that, have been popping up all over the state, leaving people scratching their heads and occasionally their clocks. Yes, their clocks. We'll get to that soon. These sightings aren't your run-of-the-mill, oops, I think I saw a UFO moments. They're precise, they're repetitive, and they're absolutely baffling. From suburban cul-de-sacs to stretches of open highway, reports keep flooding in, each more bizarre than the last. It's not just that these objects appear, it's how they appear. Silently hovering, sometimes darting away faster than anything we're used to seeing in the skies. Let's talk about those lights for a moment. There's something undeniably unsettling about them. Witnesses describe bright, steady glows, nothing flickering, no telltale signs of malfunction. They're too perfect, too precise. It's as if these crafts are built not just to evade identification, but to make you question whether you should even be seeing them in the first place. What kind of drone hovers soundlessly with lights that look more at home on a spaceship than any commercial or military craft we know about? Whatever they are, they don't seem to care about fitting into our neat categories of airplanes, helicopters, or even advanced drones. There's something else entirely. And then there's the silence. It's unnerving. We're used to the noises of the modern world, aren't we? The comforting drone of an engine, the hum of a passing aircraft, the rhythmic thrum of a helicopter blade. But these things? Nothing. Nada. It's almost as if they exist in a vacuum, defying the laws of physics as we know them. No sound, no visible propulsion systems, just a triangular shape that moves with impossible grace. If that doesn't make you glance nervously at the night sky, we don't know what will. One of the most widely discussed encounters happened in Morris County. We had a family driving along a dark road, their car illuminated only by the glow of the mysterious craft hovering above. It followed them for what felt like an eternity, long enough for them to notice something really weird. Their car's clock? It had changed time, not a little glitch, not a momentary flicker. It was a full-on time jump like something out of the Twilight Zone. And when the craft finally disappeared, the clock snapped back to normal, leaving the family more than a little shaken. Time distortion isn't something you hear about every day, even in UFO reports. Sure, there are tales of lost hours and missing memories, but a car clock doing the cha-cha with time while you're wide awake? That's a whole new level of strange. It raises questions we're not entirely equipped to answer. What kind of technology, human or otherwise, could manipulate time like that? Or was it something else entirely? Some electromagnetic interference? Or, dare we even say it, evidence of something truly extraterrestrial? Theories are plenty, but answers? Not so much. These drones, if we can still call them that, have become the talk of the town, or more accurately, the state. People are calling them UFOs. Others say they're part of some advanced military project, and then there are those who think we're being visited by something not of this earth. And honestly, can you blame them? These aren't the blurry lights or far-off objects you might dismiss as an overactive imagination. These are real, tangible sightings, and they're happening over and over again. If they are human-made, someone out there is sitting on some seriously advanced tech. For now, New Jersey residents are left with more questions than answers. What are these things? Why are they here? And perhaps most importantly, what do they want? Every new sighting adds another layer to the mystery, another piece to a puzzle that seems impossible to solve. The lights, the silence, the sheer impossibility of it all. It's enough to make you wonder if the truth is really out there or if it's hovering silently above us just out of reach. But the weirdness doesn't stop at time distortions and eerie lights. As sightings continue, the story keeps getting stranger. Could these sightings be tied to something even bigger? The anomalies. Now, some suggest the drones, or whatever they are, might emit fields of energy that mess with electronics. High-intensity electromagnetic waves are known to disrupt devices, but the level of precision required to alter a car clock without frying everything else on the dashboard, that's not exactly a standard issue feature for most known tech, civilian or military. And if it is human-made, the silence from authorities becomes even more unsettling. You'd think someone would step in to calm the waters, offer an explanation, even a half-hearted one. Instead, we're left with speculation, and that speculation is running wild. There's another possibility, though it feels almost too wild to say out loud. What if the time distortion wasn't just a glitch? What if it was a glimpse into something far stranger, something involving space-time itself? The idea sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi blockbuster, but hear us out. If these drones are capable of manipulating gravity or bending the rules of physics, as their silent, gravity-defying movements suggest, then who's to say they couldn't mess with time as well? It's a concept that feels as exhilarating as it does unnerving. Because if that's true, we're not just talking about advanced technology, we're talking about technology so far beyond us, it might as well be magic. And it's not just the clocks. Other witnesses have reported strange feelings during their encounters, not just fear, though there's plenty of that, but a kind of tingling sensation as if the air itself was charged with electricity. It's subtle, almost easy to dismiss, until you start piecing it together with the bigger picture. Every new account adds another layer to the puzzle, and the more you think about it, the less it seems like these drones are just ordinary machines. There's an intentionality to their presence, a sense that they're not just passing through, but actively observing, interacting, maybe even testing us. It's the kind of thought that sticks with you, making you glance out your window at night and wonder if something's out there, watching. So could these sensations be another clue pointing to some kind of energy field surrounding the craft? Or is it something even more mysterious, a sign that we're dealing with phenomena that don't fit neatly into our understanding of science? Theories behind the mystery. Let's face it, when strange lights start dancing in the sky and clocks begin doing their best impersonation of a time machine, theories are going to fly. From secret government projects to extraterrestrial visitors, the possibilities are as vast as the night sky itself. So what's really behind these bizarre sightings? Let's break it down. First up, the most grounded explanation: advanced military technology. New Jersey, after all, isn't far from several major military installations. It's not a stretch to imagine that some cutting-edge drone or stealth craft could be undergoing secret testing in the area. The silence, the hovering, the inexplicable maneuverability, all of it could point to a new generation of military aircraft designed to operate undetected and out of reach. But here's the catch. Why would such a project be tested in full view of civilians? And why would it exhibit behavior that seems almost designed to attract attention, like hovering over a family's car or darting through populated areas? For a program that's supposed to be secret, it's doing a terrible job of staying under wraps. That leads us to the next theory: private operators. Maybe, just maybe, these drones are the work of some ambitious tech company or eccentric inventor. After all, drone technology has advanced by leaps and bounds in recent years, but even the most cutting-edge civilian drones have their limits, and they don't include silent operation, gravity-defying flight patterns, or the ability to mess with time. Not to mention the sheer size of these things. Car-sized drones aren't exactly inconspicuous, and flying them in restricted airspace would be a legal nightmare. It's hard to imagine anyone pulling off such a stunt without drawing the ire of federal aviation authorities, let alone pulling it off repeatedly. And then, of course, there's the elephant, or rather, the alien in the room. Could these drones be extraterrestrial in origin? The triangular shape, the lights, the silent operation, it all lines up with countless reports of UFOs stretching back decades. Add in the time distortion and other anomalies, and it's not hard to see why this theory has gained traction. If these crafts aren't human-made, their presence raises some pretty big questions. Are they here to observe us, to study us, or are they just passing through unaware of the stir they're causing? The idea is both thrilling and unsettling. After all, if we're dealing with visitors from another world, it means we're not alone. But it also means we have no idea what their intentions might be. And then there's the wildcard theory. What if these drones are part of a deliberate distraction? Some theorists suggest the sightings could be a smokescreen, a way to divert attention from something else entirely. It's a bold claim, but in an age of disinformation and conspiracy theories, it's one that's hard to ignore. What could be so important or so dangerous that it requires a fleet of mysterious drones to keep us looking the other way? The truth, as they say, is out there, but for now it feels just out of reach. Whatever these drones are, they're challenging everything we think we know about the skies above us. Are they military, civilian, extraterrestrial, or something we haven't even considered yet? The more we learn, the stranger the story becomes, and the more it feels like we've only scratched the surface. And speaking of scratching the surface, there's more to this mystery than just New Jersey. What happens when these sightings aren't limited to one state or even one country? A global puzzle emerging. If the sightings in New Jersey were strange enough to keep you up at night, buckle up, because the story doesn't stop there. Across the Atlantic, reports of eerily similar craft have surfaced, painting this phenomenon as more than a local oddity. A particularly stunning development came from a quiet corner of the United Kingdom, where an amateur photographer captured what some are calling the clearest image of one of these triangular drones, or UFOs, depending on your perspective. The photograph is as sharp as it is puzzling. A metallic triangle with crisp edges, glowing lights on its underside, and a surface that seems almost unnervingly reflective. The image spread like wildfire across social media, sparking debates, theories, and no small amount of skepticism. But here's the kicker. The craft in the UK sighting mirrors the descriptions from New Jersey almost perfectly. The size, the shape, the silence, it's as if the same mysterious presence has hopped continents. What are the odds? The photographer who captured the image wasn't looking for UFOs that day. In fact, they were just out taking shots of the night sky when they spotted something peculiar. At first, they thought it was an ordinary plane or maybe a helicopter, but as the object hovered silently above a field, it became clear that this was something different. Acting quickly, they aimed their lens and fired off a series of shots before the craft ascended rapidly and vanished into the clouds. If this were a movie, this would be the part where the audience collectively gasps. Interestingly, similar sightings have been reported in other parts of the world as well. Triangular UFOs aren't a new concept in the realm of strange phenomena. They've been popping up in reports for decades. What sets these particular sightings apart, though, is their consistency. Witnesses from different countries, continents, and cultures are describing nearly identical craft. The triangular shape, the lights, the silence, it's a global pattern that's hard to ignore. Could it be that these sightings are connected, part of a larger mystery that transcends borders? Some theorists suggest that if these craft are human-made, they might belong to a single operator, a shadowy organization or government entity conducting secret tests on a global scale. The idea is tantalizing, but raises even more questions. Why test such advanced technology in full view of the public? And why mimic UFOs, a symbol so deeply tied to alien lore, if the goal is secrecy? On the other hand, if these sightings aren't terrestrial, their global reach becomes even more intriguing. Are we looking at a coordinated effort by an extraterrestrial civilization to study us? Or is this something entirely different, a phenomenon we don't yet have the tools to understand? Whatever the case, the fact that these sightings are happening in multiple countries adds a layer of complexity and urgency to the mystery. And this is where things take an even stranger turn. Some researchers believe that these global sightings are part of a phenomenon that's been happening for decades but is only now being recognized for what it is. Could it be that we're witnessing the first threads of a larger, interconnected mystery unraveling? If so, the question isn't just why these craft are appearing, it's why now. And the public is demanding answers. The growing call for answers. Back in New Jersey and now across the world, the mysterious drones are sparking more than just awe and confusion. They're igniting frustration, curiosity, and a deep demand for answers. On social media, hashtags like #TriangleDrones and #UFOWatch are trending, attracting thousands of posts, theories, and amateur investigations. Photos, videos, and first-hand accounts are weaving together a narrative that's as enthralling as it is elusive. As public interest grows, so does impatience. Officials remain largely silent, offering no clarity on what these objects could be. The lack of acknowledgement has become fertile ground for speculation. Some see it as evidence of a deliberate cover-up, while others believe the silence hints at officials being as confused as the rest of us. For many, the most baffling aspect isn't the drones themselves, but the secrecy surrounding them. If they're military, why not admit it? Even a vague "nothing to see here" would help ease public anxiety. But the complete lack of transparency has left people to fill the void with speculation, often turning to dramatic or conspiratorial explanations. One particularly unsettling theory involves foreign surveillance, with Russia often being named as a likely player. Over the years, Russia has developed advanced drone and surveillance technology, some of which has been designed explicitly to avoid detection. Could these triangular crafts be part of a sophisticated spying operation? Their silent operation and gravity-defying movements would make them perfect for reconnaissance missions. New Jersey's proximity to key military installations and densely populated regions could make it a prime target for foreign intelligence. It's a theory that feels chillingly plausible in today's climate of geopolitical tension. Those who support this idea point to Russia's history of experimenting with cutting-edge aerospace technology, often in ways that skirt international norms. There have been whispers in defense circles about highly advanced drone prototypes capable of mimicking UFOs to throw off detection and create confusion. The idea isn't just paranoid, it's strategic. If a foreign adversary wanted to test American responses to an unknown aerial threat, this would be a clever, albeit risky, way to do it. On the other hand, skeptics argue that even Russia or any other nation would be unlikely to deploy such obvious craft in airspace so close to sensitive facilities. The risks of interception or exposure would be immense, especially given the attention these drones are drawing. If foreign governments are behind this, their objectives remain a mystery, much like the drones themselves. Meanwhile, UFO enthusiasts remain firm in their belief that these sightings are evidence of something far more extraordinary. They point to the craft's unusual silence, advanced flight patterns, and uncanny ability to evade detection as signs that they're not from Earth. To them, the lack of government transparency only solidifies the idea that officials know far more than they're letting on. But even skeptics admit that these sightings defy easy explanation. Dismissing them as hoaxes or misidentified aircraft feels increasingly inadequate, given the sheer number of consistent reports. While natural phenomena and advanced civilian drones could explain some sightings, they don't account for the uniformity of the descriptions or the advanced features reported, such as time distortions and electromagnetic anomalies. Authorities and aviation experts appear caught off guard by the growing wave of reports. Statements, when given, are vague at best, often deferring to ongoing investigations or citing a lack of credible evidence. This cautious stance does little to quell public unrest. People want concrete answers, not bureaucratic deflections, but the continued silence has only heightened tensions. Whether these drones are advanced military tech, foreign surveillance, or something entirely beyond human comprehension, their presence challenges us to confront what we know and what we don't about the world around us. The skies may be silent, but they're anything but still. Are we witnessing the dawn of advanced human tech, visitors from beyond, or something even stranger? Whatever the answer, one thing's clear. The truth, elusive as it is waiting to be uncovered. What do you think is really out there? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're as hooked as we are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on this wild journey into the unexplained. We'll see you in the next one.
While the United States officially denied investigating UAPs until 2017, some nations had always been ahead in their approach to the subject. Leading the world in UAP research is the South American country of Chile. In 1997, the Chilean government officially instructed air traffic control and military personnel to create the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena. The committee studies all reports of UAP activity by commercial, military, and civilian pilots. One of the most well-publicized was a shocking incident that occurred in 2014, when Chilean naval officers flying along the coast of Santiago captured video of a UAP.
There was an incident in 2014 where a military helicopter got video of a strange object. It kind of looked like a rocket with some sort of plume behind it. And they said they were at about 4,500 feet.
They have 9 minutes of fairly clear video that exists on this. The Chilean military studied it for 2 years, and they were not able to identify this at all.
Chile, like many other South American countries, seem to be far more open to the idea that there are objects coming into our airspace.
I think one of the reasons why South American countries are more open-minded about the UFO and the extraterrestrial question is because it is part of their cultural heritage. In fact, Peru and Bolivia, they're treasure troves for the ancient astronaut theory. The whole pre-Inca culture and even the Inca culture spoke of these beings of light that descended from the sky. And so these countries essentially grew up with this intrinsic knowledge of someone up in the sky.
Brazil has had a history of really dramatic UFO encounters. Chile, I think Uruguay, maybe as well, but the whole world didn't pay much attention to it.
In addition to South America, now other parts of the world are also starting to disclose information about UFOs. Governments are openly investigating encounters reported by both civilians and military personnel. But many researchers believe the most noteworthy country to join this international effort is also one of the most skeptical: Japan. In 2018, the Japanese government released an official statement denying the existence of UFOs.
For the longest time in Japan, those in charge, those at the top of the defense departments, have denied UFOs, showed a disinterest in UFOs, basically a complete dismissal of the UFO topic completely.
The Japanese government made a sudden press release that said they would not recognize any UFO encounters or extraterrestrial presence on Earth or in the airspace of Japan. I thought this was very strange, as we had already interviewed 2 pilots who had several incidents and testimonies that they gave us regarding various pilots' encounters in the air and from the ground over the years when they were active in the military.
Mamoru Sato, a former wing commander in the Japanese Self-Defense Force, said that he regularly heard stories from other pilots as well as civilians about UAP sightings.
Some people said, there's something strange out there. There were a lot of opportunities to see inexplicable things, such as UFOs, that were monitoring the sky and training in the sky. And it was my subjective view that we should make a report and organize these things as correct data. But even when this happened, it was only shared among colleagues and not reported publicly.
According to Sato, numerous pilots have reported highly unusual encounters with what they described as cigar-shaped objects. During one such incident, a student in his fighter pilot course even lost control of his craft.
He said, the aircraft started going crazy. The alarm rang to indicate that something was wrong with the machine. I saw a cigar-shaped object flying about 1,500 meters high from east to west. The anomaly continued until it disappeared.
For years, Pilots in the Japanese military were instructed to remain silent about such incidents. But in September 2020, Japan's decades-long policy of secrecy and denial came to an end when Defense Minister Taro Kono tasked the Japanese Self-Defense Forces to make a visual recording of any encounter with an unexplained craft. Many believe this very public shift in policy was prompted by a meeting held 1 month earlier between Minister Kono and his U.S. counterpart, Defense Secretary Mark Esper.
The Japanese, after this meeting, gave a press conference, and they said one of the topics that came up was unidentified aerial phenomena, and we talked about the need to cooperate on this.
That's a major development, I think, when you have close allies like the U.S. and Japan openly speaking about the UFO issue and agreeing to cooperate. We've come so far in such a short amount of time.
The fact that Japan denied that there was UFO activity happening in their country, and now they're establishing the Japanese Space Operations Squadron, says to me that there clearly is something going on over the skies of Japan.
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest governments throughout the world are finally beginning to acknowledge that there may be objects in our skies that are not of this Earth. August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica. With 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel.
This was very important, that after the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. It was supposed to be that they would go in December, January, February, and March, and there was a list of military goals that they were to achieve, but by the end of February, something happened.
One of the mission's official goals was investigating sites for potential military bases in Antarctica. But during his explorations, Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip, but something he held back and then later was suppressed by government authorities that found it frightening.
In his diary, which was discovered by his son after his death, Admiral Byrd tells an extraordinary story.
Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. I mean, it was temperate. His squadron flew under the Earth, into the Earth.
It turns into this lush and green area, and he can't even believe his eyes. But that's just the beginning of his extraordinary story. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying disc-shaped objects around him that lead him to the ground. Whereupon he's escorted into a cavernous type of an area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master in his diary. The Master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons, and how they've recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they really are concerned about what is going on the surface of the planet. They tell Admiral Byrd that they hope that humanity will ultimately stop this.
For UFO researchers, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant due to the fact that the modern UFO era began right after World War II and the detonation of the first atomic bombs. It has also been noted that a high number of UFO sightings have been reported in the vicinity of nuclear missile silos.
Admiral Byrd's story is congruent with the stories that we hear from numerous accounts of angelic or extraterrestrial type beings that are very concerned about what humanity is doing with nuclear weapons. Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos, the nuclear missile silos, that have seen their silos and their nuclear arms disarmed by what are perceived to be extraterrestrial beings. They're very concerned that we are ultimately not just going to destroy ourselves, but could harm our planet, which is their world as well.
If Admiral Byrd's secret diary is authentic, does it reveal not only that there are highly advanced beings living inside the Earth, but also that they are monitoring what happens on the surface? According to the
flashing bright from the shadows, we arise with the truth in our hands under perilous skies. Every story told is a battle we fight. Through the darkness and the fear, we bring the light. In the chaos, in the flames, we'll stand tall, with the courage to reveal through the rise and the fall. From the embers of the war to the echoes of the call, we're the eyes of the world and we'll never stop. We'll never stop. KLW, we're the warriors on the front lines. Through the blood and the fire, we'll define the times. In the heat of the battle, where the truth aligns, we're the voice of the war and the world will find. From the ruins and the wreckage, every story's told. Through the tears and the heartbreak, the bravery unfolds. In the darkest hours, when the world's torn apart, KLW brings the stories straight from the heart. With the cameras rolling through the wreckage and the pain, we capture the reality while the world remains. Every angle, every moment in the line of fire, we're the pulse of the battlefield, never to tire. KLW, we're the warriors on the front lines. Through the blood and the fire, we'll define the times. In the heat of the battle, where the truth aligns, we're the voice of the war and the world will find. KLW, we're the warriors on the front lines. Through the blood and the fire, we'll define the times. In the heat of the battle, where the truth aligns, we're the voice of the war and the world will find. Through the smoke and the ruins, we'll pierce the veil. With every breath we take and every tale, we're the heartbeat of the conflict in the shadowed frail. With KLW's vision, the truth won't fail. Stand firm, we're the beacon in the fray. Through the dust and the fury, we'll light the way. In the fight for the truth, where the heroes lay. truth, the lies. We're the voice of the war, and the world will fight. So here's to the courage and the tales we unfold. In the heart of the conflict, our stories told. KLW, with the truth we hold. In the fire of the war, our legacy bold.
You can't handle the truth!
Folks, this is an all hands on deck. Now, hear this. What you are seeing on your screen right now is really, really, really bad. If you don't follow these aircraft every day, if you don't know how they search, if you don't know what we've been tracking for the last year, you may think, oh, Lee is full of shit. And that is absolutely fine. I understand there are ignorant people in the world who do not know what I do for a living, do not know what I have done for a living, and don't know what I've been doing for the last decade in Europe. What you are seeing right now is targeting. This aircraft is looking at everything that we have been showing you on this map for the last 6 months. If you will pay close attention to the flight path of this aircraft, and we will try to make them about the same size here, doing it like this. Let me bring that up there. So you see where the plane is flying, and you see where the targets are. Here are the targets. Here's the aircraft flying. Here are the targets. Here are the aircraft flying. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you everything. And I'm trying to gulp down coffee here because I'm going to be up for a while. I can already see that from what's going on. So it is quite obvious to me what is transpiring. And we're going to go through it first. We're going to show you Kaliningrad right here. And we're going to go into all of the targets in Kaliningrad. Then again, you come back out and you can see that the aircraft is making this bow off center or not maintaining the same distance bow. This is a concaved search pattern. Now, we've seen this before. They've only been using this for, I guess, about a month or so over in Europe. We saw the development over this over about the last 6 months. And we've told our people and showed our people this particular search pattern maneuver for a RQ-4 Global Hawk. It can also be used on a Triton, but that's not what we have here. Triton is for targets on the ocean. This is a Global Hawk. It's for targets over land. So we're in a bad way here, folks. You need to share this out. Now, also, what you need to know is I'm gonna do this. This is a public service announcement, okay? Because I've warned you about what's going on or about to happen in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. I've shown you what's going on down along the Sawalski Gap. We have shown you the trucks, over 750 trucks lined up, getting ready to go across the border. We have shown you the military troops training next to the border. We've shown you where they're camped. We've shown you where they are preparing their vehicles to cross the river to go into Poland. We've shown you where the missile sites are in the southern part of Kaliningrad. We've shown you where the missile sites are next to Grodno and the training area there in the area. So let's start pointing this stuff out so you know exactly what we're talking about. And we're tracking 2 aircraft right here. The purplish colored line here, that is Brio, which is a private jet that has been equipped not just down the road from us with a paneled array phased array radar on both sides in front of the main wing. The red line is pointing out the targets and looking at the targets that we've shown you. We've shown you the missile launchers here, the missile launchers here, the military base up here, the missile launchers down here, the missile launchers here, the missile launchers here. And you know what? I know this map well enough that, folks, I can probably go through this map without the tags and point out the different stuff. For example, these missile launchers right here, this entire facility here, they now have fighter jets here. This is an S-400 missile launcher site. If you think that's an S-400 missile launcher site, well, you can come to the south into the same runway, and guess what? Here is yet another S-400 missile launcher site. And you can see where that is, that it's inside of this bow right here and inside of this arc right here. Now you say, Lee, well, that's great, but why are they doing this funky shit right here? Why are they doing these flights? Well, that's pretty simple too. And what you have to understand is this aircraft is flying at 53,000 feet or 52,000 feet. So because of that, it can see way, way out. So it's got two ways. Yeah, Mary, I gave this map to New York, so he should be very familiar with this. And I just got off the phone with him, letting him know I was getting ready to go live and brief him on what's going on here and you guys, because all of us need to be talking about this. This isn't just me. Everybody that knows anything about what's going on over here needs to be talking about this right now, because this is not, I repeat, not a good thing. And we're going to show it to you. So you see this loop down here, and this is probably the best way to explain this. You see this loop right here? It's got a line going this way, a line going this way, a line going this way, and another line going this way. And you're like, well, Lee, that's kind of a messed up looking loop. What would they be looking at there? Well, it's real simple. If you go right over here to Hradna, and you have a look-see over here, and we come out of the city. And again, I'm doing this from memory, simply because I know where all of these sites are. So I'm going to find this one for you. What the hell am I hearing? Oh.
Canada will get there anytime soon, probably in the next maybe 10, 15 years, maybe. But that would be very tough. 5% is quite.
Okay. All right. That's the Colonel. Sorry. So if you come and you look up here, here is the river come up through Hradna right here, and you go right over here. This is the missile manufacturing facility. This is the missile storage facility. And here is the missile launchers and the radars for this facility. It's right here on the border. And if you look over here, gee, there's a line looking at it from here, and gee, there's a line looking at it from here. So they're looking at this entire area. Also down here, if you come down to Brest, you will see that they have done two passes down here. Gee, there he goes again, getting a double line again right here on Brest. This is that training area where all the troops have been moving in right here on the Polish border. If you come back up here to Hradna, then you take a look, see up here. We've already shown you the missile site there, but if we move farther to the north from there and we come up along here, you got this big training area here. Well, what's going on here? Well, these guys are doing another curve around this area here. You can see that they've got a parallel line to it looking over here, another parallel line looking to it here. This parallel line looks at it all the way down, a line coming across parallel onto it, another line looking in here. Why are they looking here? Well, this is that massive training area where they've moved more troops in again. This facility is overrun by troops. And if you come up north of this facility right here on the big road, this is where they have 275 tractor trailers lined up, ready to come across the border. Why are they lined up? It's an invasion force. Folks, that's what you're seeing here. This is an invasion force. These trucks have been parked here for months. And every time we take another look at this area, the number of trucks that is backed up is more than it was before. Now, we've shown you guys this, And people go, oh, Lee, that's a traffic jam. The border is closed. Well, there's one small problem with that. If the border is closed, you should have trucks lined up on both sides. There's a real issue here. In 3 miles going south, there's 275 trucks. In 20 miles going north, there are 8. Gee, 8 coming from the north, 275 coming from the south. You're like, oh, Lee, it's just that one place. Right, sure it is. Let's go out and look again. So we go up here and we look at Vilnius. Now, we got this line coming down here from Vilnius. We've got this line coming across. We've got this convex turn here. And what are they seeing when they look here? Well, it's real simple. If you look across the border here into Belarus yet again, and you come back here from the border, what do we see? We've got tractor trailers stacked up in the parking lot here. We've got tractor trailers backed up along the side of the road here. And this goes on for miles and miles and miles, folks. And you're like, okay, Lee, that's just 2 instances where the Russians and the Belarusians are backed up, getting ready to come across the border next to the Suwalski Gap. Well, no. Because if you come right over here, the exact same place that the Russians attacked the Lithuanians years ago, and you look at the border crossing right here, well, what do we see? Gee, tractor trailers lined up, backed up for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. That's right. They're going for a checkmate in one shot, folks. Putin just announced that they want imperialistic goals, or they have imperialistic goals. What does that mean? It means they want to take over. And you can see right here, folks, it's all there. This is really, really bad. And we're going to continue to monitor it. We're going to do this for our members only. We're going to go on a private stream. If you want to be a part of it, it's really easy. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/KLW News, and you can come there and watch it. I don't have time for trolls. And this is one of the advantages of being a KLW World News member, is that you get the opportunity to see these private streams like the one that I am about to do right here, right now for you guys. I'm going to put this up here so you guys, if you want to sign up and come watch it, you can. I'm going to start that just as soon as this broadcast is done. So it's going to take me about 5 or 10 minutes to get that up. That's going to be a 4K broadcast. And we're going to show you guys everything that's going on basically in real time. We're going to track this. We're monitoring the EAM frequencies. And you guys are welcome to come over there and watch it. I highly encourage that you do. And we're going to be leaving this up because of the fact that this is the worst case scenario is what we're seeing here. There it is. Thank you there, Racer. Appreciate that, buddy. Let's see here. There it is at the top of the chat. So again, for those of you who are just getting here late, I'm going to go over this one more time. And look, you see this map. You see where all of this is, and you can see where this is looking up in here, and you're like, gee, what are they looking at up there? Well, that's real simple. If we move back over to the KLW World News map, you'll be able to see all of that. These are all of the military bases. These are where the missile launchers are. This is a warehouse system full of missile launchers, more missile launchers down here. When we come back over here, we can see more missile launchers, facilities that they have missile launchers and explosives. You come further to the south, this is yet another S-400 missile launcher site. Down here If we come out here along the coast over here, we've got another S-400 missile launcher site. If we move up farther here north to the north, we've got yet another S-400 missile launcher site. If we move further up here, yet another S-400 missile launcher site. If we move up here, we've got another S-400 missile launcher site, and this is a regiment here. In addition to that, we've got all of these attack helicopters over here. If we move back over here, this is where they have their radioactive material in Belarus, or excuse me, in Kaliningrad. This is the airfield over here that they have been moving fighter jets into. This is not an updated map. We have an updated map that shows all of the fighter jets there. We've got another one down here where they've been moving more fighter jets in, stacked up on the runway here. More fighter jets up in here. And then we've got the maps that Steve is working on to show us more of these military bases. We're going to be on Rumble is where we're going to be. And we're going to be private over there. So just sign up on Coffee Club. If you want to be a full-blown member, you can sign up for $20 a month as a bronze, and that'll get you on your way to becoming a full-blown member. If you just want to be able to watch the private stream and our after-hours content and so on and so forth, just sign up as a silver. It's just $10 a month, basically less than the cost of a latte. Will get you information that you can't get on any other platform anywhere in the world. So, real news, real time. C. Shelley, Coffee Club, the Stripe billing has canceled a lot of people, and I have been sending out emails to all of the people that have been canceled. They have canceled well over 400 members in the last 30 days. So my apologies. There's nothing I can do about it. We are working on possibly moving over to locals, but unless Rumble is going to stop shadow banning my content, we're not going to move everybody over there. And that we have a conference call with them coming up in just 11 hours. So, no, we have not invaded their airspace yet. We are targeting targets inside of Belarus, inside of Russia, and inside of Kaliningrad in the event that they do anything stupid. Yes, Rumble is shadow banning us. We've been able to prove that multiple times. And so we're going to have a call about that tomorrow. So, anyway, this is an ugly thing. This is not good at all. This is the bad part. We can see the search patterns here. We can see the patterns. And look, it's what's perpendicular from the lines is where they're looking, folks. You can see this line right here. And that line right there, they're looking at the trucks on this highway right here, folks. Same thing with this line over here. They're looking at the trucks on that highway. Here, they're looking down in here. Here, they're looking at the radar sites here. Here's the end of a bow tie. And they're looking at the targets over here along the coast. Okay, this is looking across Kaliningrad and looking up into Russia right here. And if you want to see what they're looking at, well, that's real simple. We have a map that shows that. We have been mapping this stuff out literally for years. And so we've got maps of Belarus. We've got maps of Russia. We've got all of the air bases. We've got stuff in 3D. We've got stuff that nobody else has. We've got current satellite and surveillance imagery. We've got an imagery that is only a week old. Yeah, targeting. Yeah, SSG9, there were idiots just like you that said Russia wasn't going to do anything when they went into Ukraine. And you will find out, SSG9, that I was telling people that Russia was going into Ukraine 9 months before Russia went into Ukraine. I told people a month before the invasion it was imminent, and I warned people 48 hours before the attack that Russia was going to act within the next 24 to 72 hours, and they acted 48 hours later. In addition, we're the ones We know they're idiots, SSG9. We're well aware of that. So look back in your history, and you'll find out that I've been very, very, very accurate on my ability to track these and forecast what they are about to do. There's 348 people in here right now. Of the 348 people, how many of you have been following me since before the invasion into Ukraine over 1,000 days ago? Okay, so a bunch of you. Now, for all of y'all that were following me before that invasion, on a percentage of I was 1% right on the invasion into Ukraine up to I was 100% right on the invasion to Ukraine. And if you thought it was outstanding, you can say 110%. I want you to rate my ability to predict the who, what, when, where, why, and how that Russia was going to invade Ukraine, the positions where they were going to invade Ukraine, and the accuracy of my prediction going into Ukraine. And this is just for the people who were here at the time and actually saw it. That's okay, Dre Riff guy. You don't have to agree with me all the time. I understand that. We all don't have the exact same intelligence. And I'm not talking about how smart we are. I'm talking about how much information that we've been fed or what our sources of that information are. So different people come to different conclusions based on different information. Yeah, 90% accurate, 10% coffee. Yeah, it's probably a little bit more on the coffee. What I'm going to do now is we are going to, that's right. Yeah, the cams going across the border. It was hilarious because we were watching the Russians come across the border on the cameras and watching them move into Ukraine, and everybody else is saying, they're not attacking. And we're like, watch the camera. That's the border. You see the tanks coming across the border. They're invading right now, folks. They're coming in here. They're coming in there. And we were streaming that out for about 48 hours until it came down through command that KLW World News, that's right, Spooky Cams, showing KLW World News was showing the Russian positions, and then they sent out trucks with guys with long sticks to knock the cameras down and break the cables out of the cameras so as that we could not be broadcasting the Russians' positions anymore coming across the border. The great part is, though, we had already shown the Ukrainians where all the Russians were. We had already shown them. It was too late. 48 hours into it, it was too late. In fact, it was too late when they started coming across the border because we had been pointing out what their positions were for 7 months in advance. So it's ramping up right now, folks. Yes, it was hilarious watching the cameras taking a stand, or excuse me, the cameras watching the soldiers trying to take the cameras down. You are absolutely correct. It was absolutely hilarious. So, folks, the link is at the top of the chat. Go over there and get signed up we are going to go do a private stream. Now, what you need to do is go get signed up now, and then in 5 minutes, log back in to Buy Me a Coffee and get the link, because we're going to be going live over there, and we're going to be talking about this probably all night. This is not a good thing. This is really, really fugly, and we're seeing that because you see Brio right here. He's on the warpath. This is the exact area that the Russians want to come across, and Brio is doing it, and Forte 10 is doing it. This is a very, very, very big deal, what we are seeing right now. And yeah, we'll be putting that Christmas video up here soon. We wanted to demonstrate the quality of the new panoramic cameras on the Intimidator low light. My God, what a great job they did. And we're going to be putting that up for everybody. Yeah, Eve, they are setting up for a warpath right now. That's what you're seeing right now is targeting. What scared the hell out of me? Okay. What set off my alarm bells? What brought me out of a well-needed rest was this right here. I was laying in bed. I rolled over. I picked up my FirstNet phone and I turned on Flight Radar 24 and I saw this and said, holy shit. That was my epiphany moment that shit was about to hit the fan. Seashells, just go right over there and sign up with your credit card. And as soon as you sign up with your credit card, you can sign back in 5 minutes after I go off the air, and you will have the link to the live stream. So, I'm doing this because we always promise our people we're going to give them the exclusive content, and that when this stuff like this happens, we're going to do it private so we don't have to deal with the trolls. Because the great part about it is trolls don't want to pay $10 for something they're going to get banned from. So it's a great thing. Rafty, the only dick here is you. So with that, folks, we are going to be ending this stream. Give me 5 or 10 minutes to get the other one set up, and we're going to be over on Rumble. It's going to be in 4K if you've got a 4K TV, and we're going to be tracking all of this in real time. Steve is working on maps as we speak, and we are going to get all of this up for you guys. We will probably fly tomorrow. And see, this is what I was afraid of, is that they would try to do this over Christmas. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, they would try to do all of this because this is the thing. It's going to take NATO 10 days to respond. And with the fact that an Mi-24 Hind can fly at 200 miles an hour, it means that Mi-24 Hinds can fly all the way across this in 15 minutes. It will only take 7 minutes. 7 minutes to have attack helicopters attacking all of the crossings right here. 7 minutes to have helicopters. We're not using Patreon anymore, Jasper. We're only using Coffee Club. We're trying to get away from Patreon. They threatened to fine us $10,000 every time we put out something that they didn't agree with. So 7 minutes, folks, is all the longer it takes an Mi-24 Hind attack helicopter to fly from right here. Oops, wrong map. It only takes 7 minutes to fly across the Swarovski Gap with a helicopter that flies at 200 miles an hour. So from here to here and from there to there, it's 7 minutes, folks. 7.5 minutes. They can have attack helicopters hitting every single one of these crossings right here in 7 minutes. That's all it takes. And there are tons of attack helicopters over here. There are tons of attack helicopters over here. There are 35 attack aircraft right here at Leda. If you come over here and look at the air base, if you come over here and look at the air base, they've put up the ground radars, and they have got the attack aircraft stacked up like frickin' cordwood in here. You see that? The bunkers down here are full of attack aircraft, fuel supplies, underground bunkers full of ammunition. These aircraft can be right here on the border in attack formation right here in less than 20 minutes. Russia and Belarus can attack across the Suwalski Gap in less than 10 minutes. Under 10 minutes. And NATO will not be able to respond for 10 days. Okay? I've been tracking this for months. I'm telling you, this is ugly. It's beyond ugly. It's like I told New York Prepper right before I went live here. I told him, I said, Greg, this ain't ugly. This is fugly. This is about to get fucking ugly. And we're watching it right here, right now. The Russians are on the warpath, and now the U.S. knows it. They are demonstrating that by the flight paths that you are seeing on the screens right here, right now. Get your feces consolidated. If you know anybody that lives in Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia, you need to call them and tell them to tune into this broadcast right now. Don't send them an email. Fucking call them. Wake them up in the middle of the night. I woke up our members for this broadcast. Okay? We got people who were asleep. I woke them up. You should be waking up too. I'm out of here. We need to be talking about this and tracking it. We'll see you over on Rumble. Private stream, members only. Join a coffee club. Link is at the top of the chat. Thanks for being here. We gotta go.
That's all, folks.